Hey, how are you, man?
Okay.
Good
Tell.
to see you.
Good morning, Mr. King. How are you?
Hey, tell.
You want it, sir?
No.
Hit me on the head with it.
Hey, we're going to get started, so please sit down and be quiet.
Jamie.
I want to bring the study. First, we're going to do the study session. Study agency. Sorry. I stand corrected. The meeting will be held via video teleconference like the other meeting. The system with the general regional office in Fresno, the northern regional office in Modesto, and the southern regional office at Flyover Court in Bakersfield. It's like flyover territory. Members of the public may participate in person at any of the above referenced locations remotely via Zoom webinar. And any member of the public may address the governing board during the public comment period and on any scheduled item on the agenda. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker for good cause. The chairman amends the time limit. For the planning to participate remotely, please follow the instructions of the Zoom meeting. The meeting will also be webcast for those who only plan to observe the meeting. The webcast will be available, and there's a link that's on our deal. Written comments will be accepted by the board and made part of the record. Please submit written or electronic comments to the Deputy Clerk to the Board of the San Joaquin Valley APCD at our Fresno office no later than 5 p.m. the day prior to the scheduled meeting. To request special accommodations for persons with disability or requests in Spanish interpretive services, please contact the Deputy Clerk to the Board. What's that?
If you just like, I can call for roll.
Yeah, do roll call.
Thank you. Okay, Supervisor Chiesa,
I'm here.
Supervisor Couch,
Here.
Supervisor McCauley,
Here.
Supervisor Mendez,
I think I'm here.
Supervisor Pereira, Supervisor Shucklian,
Here.
Supervisor Rickman,
Here.
Supervisor Robinson.
Here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Okay, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Amy, you want to lead us? Approval of the consent calendar, A through 10.
I would move approval of the consent
Okay, is
calendar.
there anyone wanting to
Oh, yeah.
take off anything on consent?
I'll call for public comments on that.
Okay,
Are there any public comments in Modesto on the study agency consent calendar?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Any public comments in Bakersfield on the study agency consent calendar?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none and none online.
okay.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion
Call the roll.
from Shucklian, second
Yeah.
from McCauley. Okay. Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Ms. Shucklian,
Aye.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Okay, now we have public comment. This is for the study session agency.
Are there any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to make public comment on the study agency?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any members of the public that would like to comment on the study agency?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none and none online.
Okay, is there any board member comments for the study agency? Hearing none, someone make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You second it?
Second.
Okay. We're adjourned.
Meeting adjourned 9:07.
Man, you run a tight ship,
I
buddy.
run my own deal.
Ready? All right, good morning and welcome to our meeting of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Governing Board. We have board members participating in person at our offices here in Fresno, Bakersfield, and Modesto. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, here are some of the important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence other communication devices such as your cell phone. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. After each item, the chair will announce public comment. The clerk will recognize any public attendees who have indicated they wish to speak. May we have a roll call?
Okay, Mr. Chiesa.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Couch.
Here.
Ms. Escutia Brayton.
Present.
Ms. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mr. Mendez.
Here.
Dr. Pacheco Warner. Mr. Pereira. Mr. Reyna.
I'm here.
Mr. Rickman.
Here.
Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Dr. Sheriffs.
Here.
Ms. Nguyen. Ms. Shucklian.
Here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we move on to the approval of the consent calendar, I just, for the record, I will be leaving around 10:30 to attend a celebration of life in Clovis, and Vice Chair McCauley will be taking over for me. So now we have approval of the consent calendar. These items are considered routine and typically approved by a single vote. Before the board takes actions, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment on any item on the consent calendar.
Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comments on the consent calendar?
No public comments in Modesto.
Do we have any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none and none online.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Mendez with a second by Supervisor Robinson. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Ms. Escutia Brayton,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez.
Yes.
I see Mr. Pereira has joined us. Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Yes.
Ms. Shucklian.
Aye.
Through the chair, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Our next item is public comment. This time is provided for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Members of the public are requested to reserve comments on agenda items 6 through 12 until those items are heard. Each of those items will include a separate opportunity for public comment at that time. Please note that state law prohibits the board from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Do we have anybody for public comment?
I'll open it up for Fresno. Do we have any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Now we can see you.
Here I am. Good morning. I'm Connie Young, Fresno resident, retired registered nurse, and volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, also known as CCL. It's been a long time since I've been at one of these meetings, and it's a pleasure to greet some of you in person, all of you in person. Clean, renewable energy is making headlines right here in the Central Valley, and here are some examples. As you're probably aware, the Fresno Clovis Regional Wastewater Reclamation Facility has a massive solar array with battery storage, making it the largest municipal commercial solar and battery system in the US. Down the road a bit in Kern County, the Tumbleweed project just came online on June 1st. It's a long duration lithium ion battery storage project with instantaneous power discharge capacity that can soak up extra electrons from the sun during the day and discharge power at night. Tumbleweed is the first major grid scale battery project in the US that can discharge for 8 hours straight. The previous industry standard was 4 hours. Solar is already providing most of California's electricity during the day, and long duration battery projects like Tumbleweed are bringing us closer to 24/7 clean power. Last but not least, the Westlands Water District is planning to build a huge solar battery and power grid project that could provide a quarter of the state's clean energy needs by 2035. Known as the Valley Clean Infrastructure Plan, this project will include high voltage transmission lines that will connect to the state's energy grid. Once completed, it will be the largest solar and battery project in the country. Citizens Climate Lobby is focused on promoting bipartisan permitting reform legislation, which would hasten the construction of more projects like these. Clearly, clean renewable energy and batteries are a winning combination for many reasons. Solar panels and batteries can be made in America and built much faster than natural gas turbines or nuclear power plants. Unlike the Strait of Hormuz, no one will be able to prevent access to sunshine. Best of all, besides lower energy bills and lower greenhouse gas emissions, clean energy will mean cleaner air. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. It's good to see you in person, the star of one of our commercials.
Are there any other public comments in Fresno? Seeing none. Bakersfield, do you have any public comments?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comments?
No public comments in Modesto.
Okay. And there's no indication of online comments.
Okay, thank you. So our next item is a report on District Citizens Advisory Committee activities. Mr. Cunha.
Good morning, Manuel Cunha, a member of the CAC. Before you in your packet, you have the report from our last CAC meeting. The meetings have been very productive, and I want to thank the staff and Samir again with all the assistance that they provide to the CAC members. In your thing, Samir reported on some of the big things, and especially on the funding issue, was to provide to make sure the legislature and working with those folks in Sacramento to get funding for the ag burn, the tractor farmer program, and Clean Cars for All program. The three major programs reported, and Samir went through quite a bit of material on that. Verbal report, again, CARB is printing everything they're doing, we believe, in the report that they present. The one item that did come up in the discussion was the research division of CARB is doing research without the knowledge, really, of agriculture and some others. And you just had a study agency meeting, and that's where all of this type of information and research should come to before CARB goes out and starts doing its thing. So that was a discussion about doing research without notifying and communicating with the ag industry. So that's an ongoing discussion, and it will continue until they use the study agency what it's supposed to be used for when it was developed with this air district back in the 90s. Up to date on the rules and plans was presented. Again, we finally, Samir and the team will report on maybe some good results. Finally, we're on, we're off, we're 5%, we're 20%. But finally, Samir and the team will have a really positive report today. The subcommittee for hearing boards was selected, so we'll now be able to meet and select some folks to the hearing board in the air district. Wildfire smoke was a big item of discussion. And of course, right now we've having fires all over. And I think the fire that happened in Tracy is one, but just hearing now that we have the largest battery facility being put into this valley, if that catches fire, what do we do? And just like all the lithium battery warehouses, what do we do? It's nice to have them, but how do we maintain them? And I think the interesting discussion was when I heard the fire marshal up in Tracy, he was hoping that there was water in the fire hydrant. That was his comment. So I think it plays to be really of what's going to happen this summer, but with the wildfires. And again, staff did a great job in communicating with all of the smoke management folks. Again, a lot of discussion on the funding mechanisms, 617 on how that's going with the various areas. And the staff is doing a great job in commuting with those 617 groups. And I think you as a board and the staff need to be proud of what you guys are doing and making things happen in those rural communities. Let's see what else. Of course, Jamie Holt gave a great job on all of the, especially tied to the smoke and the wildfire smoke, and also the annual report is done, and a great booklet, and in Spanish as well as in English. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If not, I will leave this podium.
Any questions?
Thank you again very much.
Thank you, Manuel. And thank the committee also for all the work that they do. Okay, our next item is an action item, and it is to adopt the district's 2026-27 recommended budget. Mr. Shake.
Thank you, Chair Shuklian. Good morning, members of the board. I wanted to quickly introduce this item and starting with the process for the Valley Air District and preparing the recommended budget that's before you today for the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District for the fiscal period of July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. Under board policy, the first step is reviewing the recommended budget with the governing board established ad hoc budget subcommittee, which is intended to provide a preliminary review of the staff developed recommended budget prior to the public hearings that are required under state law. I want to again express our gratitude and appreciation to the subcommittee that met in April that's completed their service in that ad hoc committee, which consisted of board chair Supervisor Shuklian, Council Member Scudia Brayton, Council Member Rodriguez, and Vice Mayor Nguyen. Really appreciate you all again for your time. So after that subcommittee, under state law, your board holds the first of two public hearings, with the first hearing held in May for the exclusive purpose of allowing the public an opportunity to look at the budget and comment on the budget, and with the second hearing in June, which is today, at which the district adopts the budget, which is before you this morning. At the May hearing, you received an extensive presentation from the district, public comments that were generally positive by the public as well as members of the board. In accordance with your board's guidance and direction, the budget that we pulled together, is, as you saw during the meeting last month, is not just a set of financial figures and statistics. It's really a full representation of how the district utilizes the resources that were provided to the agency, as well as how we plan on using the resources in the new budget to accomplish our clean air mission. As part of that, we talked about priorities, some of the strategic challenges that are in front of us, and again, had a very comprehensive presentation and generally received positive feedback on the budget. So we are prepared today to provide that couple of hour-long presentation. Generally in the past, the budget is ready for action today, but we do have the team here There is a presentation available. We're happy to walk through that again today. But other than that, barring any questions or comments, we are ready for action with the budget today. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair, for any discussion and questions and action today.
All right.
Thank
Do we have any questions before we open it up for public comment? Okay. Nobody wants to go over it again? Just checking.
We're not masochists.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
Okay, are there any public comments on this item in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you, Modesto. Do you have any public comments?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public here in Fresno that would like to comment on the budget item? Seeing none in person and no indication of online comments.
Okay, so with that, I will entertain a motion to adopt the district's 26-27 recommended budget.
Motion to approve.
Ooh. Deborah?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Lewis and a second by Mr. Mendez. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Escutia Brayton. Aye. Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Yeah.
Ms. Sheklian.
Sure. Aye.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you. And again, staff, thank you for all the hard work on that. All right, our next item is to approve the continued implementation of the district's Drive Clean and the San Joaquin Vehicle Repair Program.
All right. Good morning, Madam
Morning.
Chair, members of the board. My name is Brian Dodds. I'm a program manager here in the Grants and Incentives Department. And it's my pleasure to be here with you this morning to talk about our vehicle repair program. So as your board is well aware, reducing mobile source emissions, which make up a majority of the valley's emissions, is necessary to meet our federal ambient air quality standards. The district's voluntary incentive programs play a key role in reducing emissions through clean air partnerships with businesses, the agricultural community, public agencies, and residents by providing financial assistance in the transition to the cleanest technologies available. One of our program options, the Drive Clean and the San Joaquin program, provides Valley residents with options for reducing emissions from passenger vehicles through vehicle repairs, replacement options, or rebates for the purchase or lease of new vehicles. And while our rebate program is geared towards all Valley residents, the vehicle repair and replacement program options are focused on reaching underserved communities within the Valley, which are impacted by older vehicles with higher emissions and fuel costs. The district has been recognized by the UCLA Luskin Center for Innovation for our success in reaching disadvantaged communities, achieving emission reductions, and providing an economic benefit to the Valley through the implementation of these programs. The purpose of today's item is to seek your board's approval for the continued implementation of the vehicle repair program in the upcoming fiscal year. This program provides Valley residents the opportunity to reduce emissions from their vehicles with funding for smog-related repairs. We implement this program in partnership with Valley Clean Air Now, and it's traditionally been implemented through weekend events, which are held throughout the Valley, where vehicles are screened and we determine the likelihood of them failing a smog test. Vehicles that fail this test are then provided vouchers, which are up to $850 in vehicle emission repairs. These vouchers are redeemed at STAR certified smog shops, and that covers the cost of smog tests, diagnostic time, and the emission related repairs. Just a little bit of context, over the last year, the average vehicle that we repaired was a 2006 model year with 180,000 miles on it, and the average repair cost was $545. So hard to believe, but a 2006 vehicle is now 20 years old. So the vehicles that then with lapsed registration are able to complete their registration process once the repairs are completed and the vehicle passes the smog test. In addition to the in-person weekend events, several years ago, a direct participation process was developed and approved by your board And that allows Valley residents the opportunity to contact Valley Can directly in order to be issued a voucher and schedule a visit to a smog shop to complete the vehicle repairs. This program model has been successful, and it allows Valley residents the opportunity to participate in the program at a time and a manner that is most convenient for them. So far this fiscal year, the district has provided funding for over 15,000 vehicle repairs at this point. And the weekend events continue to provide the opportunity to engage residents on the vehicle replacement program, as well as other available incentive programs, including our lawn mower and fireplace replacement programs. These are just a few images from our repair events. I know many of you have been there in the past, but really a great opportunity to see in person the types of vehicles, the age of vehicles, and sort of the condition of vehicles that are coming through the events. They continue to have strong participation and just a great opportunity to engage with Valley residents. The district's 26-27 budget, which was just approved, includes $12 million in funding for the implementation of the vehicle repair program. That includes the cost of vehicle repairs, as well as event-related expenses and day-to-day program administration. Through the planned weekend events, which are on the slide here, and the direct participation process, we expect that program funding can result in up to 18,000 vehicle repairs in the next year and achieve about 90 tons of emission reductions through the program. We are proposing to continue program implementation with the weekend events that are planned at this point, as well as the direct participation process, as each part of the program helps support Valley residents throughout the year. Weekend events allow for very focused outreach and engagement with Valley residents who may prefer to participate in person, while the direct participation process allows access to the program for all Valley residents throughout the year outside of the traditional events. If approved, our staff will offer a new agreement with Valley Can for the continued program administration of the program, including program management activities, outreach, participant assistance, holding weekend events throughout the Valley, ensuring that we have a strong network of participating repair facilities, and reporting program information to the district. With that, the recommendations are here before you for your consideration. We do have Rodrigo Sandoval from Valley Can who would like to say a few words about the program, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'll turn it over to Rodrigo.
Good morning, Rodrigo.
Good
Welcome.
morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thanks for having me here. I want to start out by saying thank you to the board for your ongoing support and for allowing Valley Can to serve Valley residents to help lower emissions. I also want to say thank you to Samir for your ongoing leadership of this one-of-a-kind program. Thank you to your staff, the district team, who have played a key role in this partnership in improving our systems and allowing us to really expand and deliver the best possible customer experience. On that note, with customer experience, there's a lot that goes on, not just outside of the process that we do, the work that the district does, but our partnerships with our smog shops. Our partnerships with our smog shops are meant to align this experience so that it is fluent and seamless for the participant. We also conduct a lot of outreach so that we can ensure access outside of these smog shops. We're trying to bring in STAR qualified facilities that can address those access issues or concerns that we may have. I do want to say we've had a great year. We have seen strong demand for the program. And with that, I would like to say Valley Can is well positioned to continue to serve our participants in this program. Our goal is not only to lower emissions, but put them into reliable vehicles moving forward. We do look forward to another successful year, and we're committed to ensure that public investment is delivered through meaningful air quality and will benefit not just the community, but our participants. So with that, I want to say thank you. And I do hope that you all continue to support programs like these, and we invite you to our in-person events. Thank you to those that have been and participated, and we'll have many more. It's a whole different experience that you can only see in person. So thank you. Back over to Brian.
Thanks, Rodrigo. Ready for
Okay,
questions?
yeah, absolutely.
All right, we have a council member, Escutia Bratton.
Thank you, Chair. Congrats to everyone who makes this program happen. I think it's one of our best programs, and I'm delighted that the board saw fit to approve its funding. Kind of curious as to each event that we have, do we turn people away? Are at the end of the day, at the end of the year, do we have funding left in the program? What has been our experience in terms of, do we have enough funding allocated for this program? Do we need more? Is it just right?
Yeah, thank you for your question through the chair. Appreciate the opportunity to provide some feedback on that. We do have pretty good turnout at the events in person, and to my knowledge, we have not had to turn anybody away from participation. I would like to maybe clarify just on the table of participation rates that you might be looking at in the board item. The dates and months are based on when vouchers were issued, so there's some incomplete data that we haven't fully been reported back to us yet. But if there were concerns as far as participation in April and May, that information will come back to us. They just haven't completed their emissions repairs. We do have, through the fiscal year, sufficient funding to support those participants.
Through the chair, if I could just add one other piece. Thanks, Brian, for that response. Yeah, I think the other thing I would add is, as you know, in the Valley, there's quite a bit of opportunity for vehicle-related programs. Whether it's repair, replacement. We have a lot of communities. That there's a significant population still of older vehicles out there, and so it's really well calibrated right now to where the number of events, the level of outreach that we do, this funding amount is very consistent with the demand, that we basically have. I think that, if, for example, the state were to continue supporting this and its complementary program, Clean Cars for All, you dial up the outreach, you can actually get even more demand, but we're very careful to design it in a way where, we're basically not turning people away. But that's not to say, though, that there isn't, even more demand if there was, more, more funding for these types of programs. So we design it in a way where the grassroots outreach is done, and the level of intensity of it is obviously very intense. Many, many thousands of vehicles that are being repaired, but the opportunities are also significant, and we're not turning people away.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Valley Can as well as the Air District for sponsoring this. Since I've been on the board, I've been able to attend each one that's happened on the west side in Los Banos and also in Merced. And it's a remarkable thing, not only the logistics of putting this together and getting people through the lines, getting the small check done, and then having staff at the end to help residents who either need repairs or interested in purchasing a used or new EV or hybrid vehicle. So thank you, Samir, for making sure that this board continues to sponsor this program. And thank you to Valley Can for the tremendous work that you do. The question that I have is, do other air districts do this in their areas?
Through the chair, I just thank you for those kind comments. And the short answer is no. We are extremely proud of the fact that this program, along with the Clean Cars for All, the complementary vehicle replacement program, for situations where perhaps it makes more sense to replace the vehicle than maybe repairing the vehicle. These are programs that were developed right here in the San Joaquin Valley. That complementary program did become we actually served as a model for a statewide program. So there's a few other areas that implement that program not effectively as we do here. We have a tremendous success in implementing that program in partnership also with Valley Clean Air Now. And we're continuing to advocate for funding, as you heard earlier with Mr. Cunha's comments. But yeah, we are uniquely positioned, I think partially because of the tremendous innovation that Valley Clean Air Now has brought into that space. And then also in large part due to this board's commitment to innovation and supporting doing things that make sense and that work here in the San Joaquin Valley. And it takes really that combination of board commitment, innovation with our partners, our staff, who are tremendous at looking at these opportunities and working with Valley Clean Air now, working with a bunch of other partners that are part of this effort, and coming up with a system that is, this is not meant to be, no pun intended, but fine-tuned and working, extremely efficiently. So just want to use that opportunity to, your question to highlight just how innovative this has been and how difficult it is for other regions to replicate the success that we've seen here.
Well, thank you again.
All right, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, thank you again for your presentation. I also wanted to thank Rodrigo and also Samir for the continued efforts in providing this program and this incentive program for a lot of our Valley folks. I too, alongside Councilwoman Lewis, have attended, and thank you, Samir, for having me attend the Madera District Fair, where I noticed and I witnessed how much of a need it is. Lines were just backed up, people waiting early morning, if not the night before, trying to make sure that they can get in there. And again, that just shows that there's a big need for this program. So I appreciate that. I know the $12 million goes to a certain extent. I would hope that this board would continue to approve it, and if not, increase the amount. Clean cars for all. I mean, obviously that term, it's not necessarily a free car, but it's going to do something for them to allow them to continue to reduce those emissions. So I got to just thank Jose from also Valley Can, a very big participant out there involved with the community. So thank you again, and I appreciate the efforts.
Vice Chair McCauley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you to the team and Valley Clean Air now for all their partnership on this. For me, a finely tuned, program like this is always got to be tweaked, right? So we're always looking for opportunities to improve it. And so in that thread, I look at the program administrative and event-related expenses, and I'm not really sure what that all includes. And so I'm curious, if you can kind of talk about that a little bit, and then kind of in follow-up to that, I'm assuming that a big portion of that is like marketing, advertising, those sorts of things. And just knowing that we have such a wonderful team here at the Air District, I wonder if there's opportunities for us to take on some of those services in-house to reduce some of those administrative costs, so that way we can, truly maximize as many of the dollars towards vehicle repairs. So that's just kind of my thought. Again, finally tuned, not trying to poke holes in it, but obviously, again, looking for any opportunity for continuous improvement. So
I'll start, and I think Brian can add to the response. But there is a long list of logistical costs that go into hosting those events, everything from the facility to set up, and just a lot that goes into that, and we can itemize some of those. And I think over time, as we think about the mix of approaches in the program, because that's a dial that we can turn up or down, in terms of the number of events. As if we reduce those, for example, there would be less administrative cost. Increase them, there'd be more. We've continued to, despite rising costs in general, we continue to look for efficiencies, over time to keep those costs down. So that is, what you said about continuous improvement and continuing to look for those opportunities is 100% in line with what we've been aiming to do. And I think you brought up another interesting idea around the outreach. And certainly it is something that we definitely look to coordinate on that. So if we can find some opportunities there, that's a commitment to definitely look at that, with the upcoming fiscal year and beyond, in terms of, there is a lot of, I would say, additional outreach that happens to, it's grassroots in many ways. It is something that we conceivably, I think, we'll definitely take a look and see if we can, take some of that on. Obviously that would offset, some other things that we do. This is very program specific. So we have to look at that carefully and make sure that we're able to achieve like all of our goals, with that. And it is I would say, a relatively small subset of that total. Most of that cost is going to go into the staffing, the facility, and things like that. So, but every dollar counts. It goes into a repair at the end if we can bring those efficiencies in place. So I definitely think it's a great thought in terms of continuing to look for those opportunities, and we commit to doing that for sure. And I don't know, Brian, if you want to add anything more as to what goes into those.
Yeah, I don't know that I can add a whole lot more, but I will say it's a very true partnership between Valley Can and the district. and there are roles and responsibilities that Valley Can has. There's roles and responsibilities that we have. Our team works very well together. We review all of the claims for payment and things like that that come for us. So before any dollar is spent, we reviewed it and ensured that it meets the requirements and needs of the program. There's also strong collaboration between our teams to look for efficiencies. We meet regularly with them. We've improved a lot of the processes over the last several years, but there still is room for improvement. And we're continuing to work on that on a daily basis to make sure that the dollars are spent as efficiently as possible.
I appreciate that mantra, and I would just underscore again, a wonderful program. I think, when I had the opportunity to attend down at the Madera Fairgrounds, I got contacted by some folks in Bakersfield looking for resources. So, I mean, obviously everybody's doing a wonderful job, and again, appreciate, the effort to strive towards continuous improvement. So thank you.
Dr. Sheriffs.
Thank you. And thank you for that last question, because, we want to be efficient. We want to be using the dollars well. And in some ways it may look, it's about a 25% overhead. It may look, that seems a little high. Boy, we get so much bang for the buck out of this. If a repair is we identify a $545 repair and get 90 tons annually in terms of reduction of the pollutants. This is fantastic. It's fantastic reaching into these communities that have been very hard to access in the past, to get involved in our programs. So it's really exceptional. Rodrigo, thank you very much for coming today and presenting and for your participation in it. There are a lot of moving parts that make it smooth for the participants. And I think once again, that's always been a goal of the district, and is very important to recognize that interface with the repair shops, with the smog shops. Boy, if there are hiccups in that, it's going to put people off. It's going to make them hard to access this service and for us to get the benefit. So there's a lot behind this. My question, Rodrigo, if we find more money, when we find more money, do you have any particular wishes beyond reach more people, or are there tweaks that more money coming into the program would allow for a better product, do you think?
I think like Samir and Brian had mentioned, a lot of the work that we do has been supported by hours and backed by so much proven work. So I think it would be more of if there is more funding available, let's go back and be innovative, and how can we invest that additional funding to support the residents, the participants. So whether it be bigger incentives, more outreach, or providing additional services, because access is huge. And the board, Brian Samir touched on something that I think it's really important to acknowledge, is there isn't really any other program like this out in the state. I came to Valley Can 2 years ago. Before that, I actually piloted the program that Brian talked about, the statewide program, for 6 years. And although that program saw its successes, it wasn't as efficient. And a lot of it comes down to you all, the innovators, the supporters, and being involved with the work we've been doing here in the last 2 years. I've seen more commitment, more support, and the ability to be innovative. So more funding would be great.
All right. Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Rodrigo, thanks to you and your team at Valley Can. Brian, thanks to you and your team. What I like here is that you're painting a good face on government. And that's a hard thing to do. The other thing is you're touching people at ground level. And that's also very important. I love that. You know, I just shared this with Smear yesterday, but I was with Senator Schiff about a month ago. And one of the things I said to him in the course of that conversation was, Senator, you need to be more like the Air Board. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, use the carrot more, and the whip less. So I love these incentives. They're partnerships with people. In other cases, they're partnerships with businesses. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the good work, that you do, but everybody needs to remember this program's successful is because it's our program that we vetted early on and basically came up with where we're at today. It just shows how great this team is. And that's why nobody else can do it. We have the best. But how many, what's the average number of people we're able to serve per event? I know that's kind of a tricky question, but
It's a great question. Thank you for the opportunity through the chair. Currently, we're seeing participation events average between about 350 and 400 residents. Really depends on the location. Bigger cities are going to have some more participation. We can serve up to about 525 folks. So on occasion, we reach those sort of maximum numbers. But yeah, we're kind of holding steady in that 350 to 400 range.
And your bigger events are like Fresno Fairgrounds.
Fresno, Bakersfield, Stockton, probably are the biggest ones, and then kind of proportional to that city's population.
Right. And another thing people don't realize, we actually get a lot of cooperation from the California Highway Patrol, because a lot of these people, their tags are expired, and they know that they're coming to this event, and as long as they drive in to the event, they're pretty happy about that. So they've always cooperated.
Yes.
I don't know if Rickman cooperated.
That's good to remember. I'll just say I'm on my way to tune in, tune up.
Yeah. But anyway, just thank you for the management, here and everybody that actually gets the work done.
Okay, I see no more questions from the board. So do we have any public comment?
Okay, Modesto, do you have any public comments on this item?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Bakersfield, do you have any public comments on this item?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public in Fresno? See one coming up to the podium.
Good morning, Manuel Cunha, Nisi Farmers League. Also from the CAC, this has been a great discussion, very positive thing by all the CAC members over the past several, when the budgets are this program always is talked about how valuable. I'm going to share with about 7 months ago, a grower that Buddy knows, and probably the chair knows, and a few others know, called me. He is the nephew of one of our large packing houses, and said that he was called out to the parking lot, and the farm worker showed how he was in the program and got this car that can run on fuel and run on a battery. So it was just, the grower was just so excited to see, but the worker was so excited to bring the farm manager or the son out to show him what he had just got. So again, the program is reaching out a lot of people, but again, it's one of those that are valuable and what it's doing. I just can't believe you're going only to 2006. You're making us sound like something's about age or time. We should go back to 96. Then I will be a little more happier knowing that there's not this 2006 stuff. But again, I commend Brian, you and the entire team, Samir, the board, when you first started, in Jamie Holt. I'll never forget that lady, the first time she ever said it. If she didn't get the money, she would have to take money from her food to pay for getting the car tuned up and stuff. Never forget that. And so you're right, buddy. It's gone a long ways, and great job. And we got to keep the money, and CARB needs to take that money out of its slush fund that belongs to the program and give it to such a valuable program in this valley. So again, congratulations on a well-run program, and we must keep it funded because it does work. It meets our farm workers even. And when we hear that from a grower, to me, that just makes me really feel good that we reached out to that individual that's on a farm. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. You have more? Public comment. That it? Okay, I will bring.
Actually, let me just make sure we don't,
What was that?
want to make sure there's none online. There are no online
Oh, online,
comments.
okay. Who was that? Okay, so I thought it was Buddy. No. So we have a motion from Dr. Sheriffs and a second from Supervisor Mendez. Please roll call.
Hey, Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Escutia Brayton. Aye. Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Yes.
Ms. Shucklian.
Aye.
Through the chair, motion passes.
All right, thank you, Brian, and Rodrigo, thank you very much also. Okay, our next item is to approve a contract for advertising and marketing agency representation for comprehensive multilingual public education and outreach. Ms. Holt.
Good morning, Chair and board members. To support our clean air mission, your board has placed a high priority, as was just mentioned, on education and outreach. And really, we focus on three board-approved goals. The first one is really to inform the public when we do have those episodes of poor air quality and give them tools to check air quality on a regular basis, making sure that they understand those steps they need to take when air quality is poor to protect their health. Next, we want them to engage in those clean air efforts, both by taking advantage of our grant programs and by doing those things within their lives that help reduce voluntarily, that help reduce pollution. And third is making sure that they understand a little bit of our journey about how much improvement we've seen here in the Valley and the challenges that still remain before us. Within our education and outreach plan, and then specifically to our advertising and marketing contract, we really work on a lot. So you only see 6 bullets here, but really incorporates a lot. Probably our biggest and the biggest chunk of the funding for advertising and outreach goes to our winter residential wood smoke reduction campaign. That includes letting people know about the different curtailment levels, letting them know about our grant program, letting them understand that on certain days, even though it might be okay to burn, we really encourage that they don't burn. Then we do summer campaigns. Those are those summer campaigns that we usually run in late August, early September, when we do see a little uptick in ozone. We also have a program that really is kind of an emergency response, whether it's wildfires or, as has already been mentioned, what happened up in Tracy last week, that kind of emergency response program to make sure that within minutes, we're ready to get information out, both with our advertising agency partner and with the team here in the building on the ground, so that folks have accurate, correct, timely information. We do a lot of outreach around our grant program. Recently, if you may have seen, especially if you've actually been physically in some of our local hardware stores, we're talking about springtime, our Clean Green Yard Machine program, trying to get folks to understand that there's a little rebate they can get if they go electric. We work a lot with individual communities on community programs. Really, I want to say here, looking for partnership opportunities. If someone has a little bit of money that they're going to bring to the game and we can bring a little bit of our money, and instead of it being $1,000 worth of spending, all of a sudden it only costs us $1,000, but we can make it seem more like $1,500, that's a positive that we're always looking for. And then, of course, events, workshops, educational campaigns through our school programs, really doing a lot to make sure that we're meeting the public where they're at in a way where maybe they're open to hearing us. Consistent with our core value of continuous improvement, the objective is to find an agency that really builds on current success. And thanks for the nice comments that have already been made. We've been contracting with an advertising agency since I started way back in 1950. No, that's not true. Sometimes it feels like it. Really since about 2003. And we've had different agencies over the time. And I think we've been very successful. We have award-winning programs. And we hear that that for a government agency, I think Supervisor Robinson's comment was right on. We are well respected and folks do listen to our message and they trust us and come to us for air quality information. We want to really meet the moment in a changing climate for advertising and marketing. 15 years ago, it was really about getting a TV commercial on must-see TV on Thursday evenings, if you all remember that. That was before Facebook, before social media, before websites. It's not like that anymore. Anymore, we need to meet the residents of the Valley where they're consuming their information. It's in many ways a very fractured media landscape out there. And so we've got to find, is someone looking about changing out their fireplace? We want to pop up on their search so that they see our grant program. Is someone searching for a new car? We want to be at the dealership with the flyer telling them what a great purchase an EV might be and how it might actually work for them. So it's really about meeting that customer where they're at and then using data. There's a lot of data out there to drive what we're doing. Is it hitting home? Are we getting not only the eyeballs on it, but one of the things we really focused on in this RFP process, are we reaching our key performance metrics? Are we getting folks to either be more aware of the district, more aware of our programs, or actually to change their behavior? Maybe it's downloading an app. Maybe it's clicking on a page on our website. Maybe it's taking advantage of our grant program. So really that analytical review is becoming more and more important based on the tools that are out there for us to better understand how our advertising is hitting. About every 5 years, assuming that we're with an agency that is performing well, and I will tell you, we have always been very happy with the agencies that we've partnered with, but our policy is that we go out to RFP. It's just good government that we go out to RFP. We give everyone an opportunity to get some of our business. We posted this RFP on April 8th, and we emailed it directly to 28 Valley businesses that we had flagged as potential marketing PR companies. We requested a written proposal that really focused on some of those data-driven and strategic metrics that I mentioned. We have and thanks to you all, have invested in some of our internal creative abilities, just so we can be a little more nimble and a little better with our organic kind of digital media. So we don't need someone that's going to maybe develop a whole campaign for us, but we do need someone that can place media, can work with us on the analytics, can work with us on saying, hey, you went left here, maybe we should go right. So someone who will really be with us in that data-driven process. We look for someone who has the multilingual experience that we want. You know, we've got a lot of languages spoken in the Valley. We traditionally do outreach in Spanish, English, a little bit less, but also Hmong and Punjabi. And then every once in a while, we have a community where we need a different language, and we want to be nimble enough that we can support those needs. We wanted the agency to have familiarity with the Valley's unique media market. We actually have 3 different media markets here in the Valley. Bakersfield, which is very contained. It kind of is the southern end of the Valley Air District. Fresno, kind of the central part of the Valley Air District. And then you folks up in Modesto, you're our little troublemakers, and you actually have both Sacramento and, as we learned last week, Bay Area. Some folks are watching all 3 of those different media markets. So we want to make sure when we're spending money in the north that we're not spending it to reach people in Bay Area or in Sacramento. And then, of course, we want to get we run a tough ship around here. We want the most value for our dollar possible. We want you to give us a lot, but we want you to charge us as little as you can. So we really look at that. And then, of course, responsiveness. Can they respond quickly when we do have one of those situations, be it a wildfire or a sensitive air quality event? The written proposal was based on a variety of criteria. You can see it here, including experience. Do they understand the Valley? Do they understand our air quality issues? Big chunk of it was that media planning, metrics, strategy development, budget and billing. Do they have experience with public agencies, with governments? We think that's important. Of course, references. We checked and made sure that what they were telling us was true. We had 10 written proposals. These are how they ranked. You'll notice that we had quite a few that were totally from outside of California. I think that's just the current climate that we're in, economically speaking. The the agency that we're proposing today is called Hyphen. They were formerly JP Marketing. They are an agency that is based in the Central Valley, and they have over 30 years of experience. Those 4 top finalists were brought to the Air District for finalist interview. There was a team of 4 of us that included myself, my manager. I was able to get Samir's time and allowed him to come and sit down and in on them. And then Deputy Ryan Hayashi, who works with our community program. So a good kind of perspective there. And really, we wanted to assess their strategic buying, their understanding of the Valley, their ability to kind of help us make those quick changes in campaign if the data or analytics was giving us information that dictated that, and cost, transparency, ability to work in an environment where really, I think the goal is to build trust. As a government agency, we want to be seen as the place where people go that they trust to get good air quality information. So after the finalist interviews, we did rank Hyphen as having demonstrated the most strategic value, regional expertise. They have over 30 years of experience here in the Valley. Some of the campaigns that they've done recently, they are currently Fresno County's agency of record. They actually started just in public health in Fresno County. They now represent all of Fresno County. They've worked for the California Highway Patrol. They actually ran a street racing, anti-street racing campaign that was statewide, that was actually focused very, very heavily in the Central Valley. They've worked with the Department of Pesticide Regulation here very recently on spray days, working with the agricultural community on what could have been a little bit of a contentious program, but I think ended up being a very positive one, spray days with the Department of Pesticide Regulation. And that's just a few of the public sector expertise they have. They're really and they are here today. If you're wondering who these folks are kind of behind me, they're here today and really showed to us that they can give us some of those, build upon some of those data-driven metrics and analysis that we want to see. Transparent, really brought, I think, just a wealth of experience. And then, of course, had what staff thinks is one of if the most cost-effective proposals out there. Their discounted blended labor rate is $135 per hour for strategy development, analysis, reporting, account management, all of that. And then the typical industry standard for commission on media placed is 15%. They came to us with a 10% on net media spend. That's basically saying that if we're going to spend $10 on media, their commission won't be $1.50. Instead, it will be $1. And that extra 50 cents that we've saved, we can reinvest in our campaign. Then they have basically said that due to their experience in the community, they feel that they can get about a 15% value-added media buy. That is, if we're going to spend $10 on a billboard, they're going to get us an extra $1.50. Things might be an extra week of a billboard. Maybe it's a 2-for-1 in traditional media. Instead of just buying one ad, we're going to get an extra ad. Maybe it's a scroll on a website if we're placing ads on maybe a local TV station. Maybe it might be that we get invited to do some in-person interviews with the local news. So a good media value, and an overall, we felt good value and cost effectiveness. The fiscal details, this is a 12-month contract with aligns with the district fiscal year. It is just over $600,000. You all just approved this in the budget. The contract can be terminated with 60 days notice, although we've never done that. Samir and I want to be able to do that if we need to. And it is monthly invoicing, proof of performance. I get little photos of when a billboard is placed, of what it looks like. I get a list of every single ad that we place, be it on digital or traditional media, tracking of any hours that have been worked, and looking at the budget, making sure that we're staying within budget. And the last part here is that assuming they are doing well, as with years past, we can do up to 4 additional renewals. We'll bring it back to your board, has to be approved by the board, has to be contingent on good performance before we would go out to RFP again. With that, the recommendation is before you, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things. If you put up a billboard for me, make sure there's a lot of photoshopping, please. But so who sets the initial demographic, and how deep do you go on that? Back when I used to do all that stuff, it was age, income, and gender. You guys get into psychographics and all that, but here's the thing. You guys can probably do the placement, but who actually determines our demographics? Every time we interact with someone, do we collect that data? How does that work? And then lastly, on the matching grants, if someone's unwilling to give a matching grant, have we talked to the Home Depots of the world and the Lowe's of the world saying, okay, if you won't give us a matching grant, maybe a discount. So maybe you just give us a $50 off just because collectively they're going to do a lot more business. Just a thought. Thank you. And thank you. Welcome.
To answer through the chair.
Absolutely.
To answer your first question, it really depends on the campaign. So certain campaigns during the winter, we're really targeting folks that might use a fireplace. So it's really, and this is based on some survey data that we have done in the past and some information that we've worked with previous advertising agencies on, but we're looking for folks who maybe live in a home who have a fireplace. So it tends to be older homes. It tends to be folks who are maybe in a home versus an apartment. It tends to be folks where the rule applies to them. So we don't do a ton in our rural and foothill areas during that campaign. One of the things that we're excited about, though, with this new agreement with Hyphen is some of that psychographic data, because there are so many more tools out there where folks, and I say this being very sensitive to privacy, there are a lot of tools where one agency even said, we're happy to track this person's phone and see if they go into a hardware store where that was a little too far for a government agency. But we do want to get the psychographic data that tells us that, hey, this is a group that might be prime electric vehicle buyers, or because they do all of these other things. Maybe they bought a piece of electric yard equipment. We're excited with Hyphen that they're bringing a lot of that new kind of data-driven metrics to the table. And it really, the industry has changed so much in the past 15 years that I think with some of our grant programs and some of our smaller, more niche campaigns, we can go even deeper than we have in the past. With regard to Home Depot and Lowe's, we talk to them on a fairly regular basis. And I will tell you that until recently, they really didn't want anything to do with us. And even now, it depends on the actual Home Depot that we go in. We've been going into Home Depots and Lowe's and Ace Hardwares. Ace Hardwares are so easy to work with. But the big corporate ones, it really depends on the manager on duty, whether or not we can even hang our signage. And we've got some that are like, definitely, we want you to put your little signage right there by our electric lawnmowers. And some are like, nope, can't do it. Corporate won't let me, the whole type of thing. So it is an ongoing relationship building, I think, that we are making with these folks. The bigger corporate entity that it is, the more difficult it has been. And it's only really been in the last year and some of the relationships that actually my team has built by going in and we made a bunch of phone calls. No one via phone wanted to do it. It's this going in and actually building relationships. So we do think there continues to be opportunities. And I will tell you, as a business owner, this, it's based on relationships, and the more independent an individual is, the more likely they are to want to partner with us.
Thank you.
And remember, we're only paying them $600,000. So the photoshopping of your picture, it might take more than that, Rusty. I don't know.
There's a rule in Kings County, you got to be pretty ugly to be a supervisor.
Dr. Sheriffs.
Thank you for that discussion, Jamie. That was very helpful and very thoughtful. Because who we interact with is constantly varying. I mean, at one level, we interact with the entire public. That's the whole point. We're a public health agency.
Yeah.
And everybody is who we work with, who we're here for. And then we have these individual campaigns that are trying to reach certain audiences. So it's a thank you reminding us how complicated the job is that we're asking to be done, but how important. And so I'm reassured to hear that there's public health agency experience with this group, so that they certainly already appreciate the mission and also the nuance of what goes on. A specific question, the budget, the appropriation for 25, 26 was how much?
It was about $200,000 more. We are cutting it down just a little bit.
Because
Yeah, we found that through the zero-based budget analysis, through the chair, if I could respond to that we'd be able to achieve our goals. There's a lot of efficiencies and tools like social media that are available to us. And so I think this year, especially with the strategic development that Jamie mentioned, we're going to get a really good sense of, how much we can actually get done with, even more data and science kind of driving, sort of the effectiveness of it. And I think it's something we can keep an eye on. But overall, as you heard last month in the budget presentation, we're definitely looking for opportunities for continuing to look for, for more with less across the board. And so we definitely took a close look at that and felt that we could accomplish our goals with that amount of funding. But that's year to year. It's still it's a large valley. So we definitely, and by the way, the vast majority of that budget is for media. I have to say, just to clarify, most of that money actually goes into actually buying media. And some of that funding goes into some of the analysis and so just to to clarify that in case you're wondering kind of how much of that goes to what part of the contract. The vast majority is media, and fortunately within the contract there's a healthy opportunity there to really think about strategy too, and that's something that we're super excited about. And then as we'll see, I think in future years whether we can always dial that up or down depending on what we think we're able to demonstrate in terms of value with those efforts.
And just to piggyback on that, some of the things that we used to have our ad agency do, as Supervisor McCauley mentioned, my team now does. So we've invested a lot internally, and I have, you all know some of my team, and they are fantastic. Many of you met my videographer. So some of that used to be done by the ad agency, and we brought it internal just to be quicker, more nimble, and more cost effective.
Just a small example of that is most of the creative work is actually done in-house, whereas a lot of that used to be done by outside. So we're going to keep looking at that in terms of, we tinker with this on an ongoing basis, again, in the spirit of continuous improvement. But to Supervisor McCauley's point, we're always looking for ways to basically do more with less. And I think by working on creative, for example, in-house, that's something that we're not outsourcing and having to pay for that. And as you've seen, we're actually, award-winning the last couple of years and on the creative side, whether it's the tractor replacement commercial or some of the other work that we've done recently. So terrific job on Jamie's team. It's a partnership. We don't outsource our outreach effort. A portion of this related to strategy development, and then obviously the media buys, we get all that extra value and return. The strategy on that side of it is really where the focus of this contract is.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, quick question. You brought up a good point. So when you do the outreach, Jamie, any outreach to young kids at school?
We have a gigantic Healthier Living Schools program that overlaps with this a little bit, but I will tell you that it is much bigger than just advertising. It includes a variety of tools that we give both to parents, teachers, students, administrators. It includes educating everyone on our real-time outdoor activity risk recommendations. We have no idling signs. We have little kids activities books and kits and all sorts of stuff. So we have found in the almost 20 years that we've run a school program, that actually takes more of a hands-on touch for a variety of reasons. One is because there's such transition in schools, people moving around a lot. So while this program, this agreement will work with our Healthier Living Schools program, most of that is done by in-house staff.
Good. And the reason why I said is because as adults, I think it's harder to change behavior with adults. I mean, myself, trying to get from a fireplace to a insert, it took me a while to get that done. But with kids, I think you start them early and they tend to learn and transition into adults that say, this is a better thing for us to do. So I know you do that. I just emphasize that because it's important that we continue to teach these kids in school. No different with conservation of water. Air quality is very important. So thank you.
And we also have the extremely popular kids calendar contest and whatnot. So, okay, Councilmember Escutia Bratton.
Thank you, Chair. Jamie, I've said it before, and you've heard that many, many accolades from myself and other board members. Your program and your team are amazing, period, end of story. That being said, can you speak to, or can you share with us in the past, we've had a very robust program that featured board members on commercials and on bulletins and I know moving forward, we're going to have a different approach to that. What might that be? Are we incorporating perhaps the public face of our customers or our key collaborators, or how are we approaching that public program differently?
We have begun to transition, even in the last few years, that we have used Connie Young, who is here. We have used some of our grantees in commercials that we have then placed in some of our digital assets. Sorry, through the chair. I keep forgetting.
Of course.
And so we have begun that tradition. I think some of those questions, we're going to sit down with our agency and find out what's going to be the most effective. What are the tools, the commercials, the advertisements that will resonate with the different target groups that we want to be reaching? So I don't know that we're necessarily going to transition away from anything that we've done in the past. I think it's that we're going to look for additional, maybe new strategies, fine tune existing ones, and see, is there something, I do think that the one group that is ripe that we maybe don't quite have, and they're really tough to get, is the 20-somethings, kind of the Gen Alpha folks, seeing where there might be opportunities to get some of those new groups who maybe we haven't been able to reach before. So we're meeting, actually our meeting, assuming everything goes well today, July 1st with Hyphen, to really look at those, what they call KPI, key performance indicators, what we want those to be, and what strategies do we think we need to begin to develop to meet those KPIs.
Through the chair, just one last kind of comment. Thanks, Jamie, for that response. I just wanted to add that this is a very active space for the board in terms of continuing to look for opportunities to either launch a new campaign or a sub-campaign, or look at things like how do we best utilize voices within the Valley. Like that was actually an idea from the board to look at grantees, for example, being in some of these commercials. And so when we get as we work with a new agency, assuming that the board moves forward today with this, I think we're going to continue to have, I think, some really good, robust conversations. It's a pretty regular part, for example, of our study sessions, is having an item to talk about strategy and to think about like what's been working well, what are some new ideas. So I think that this overall, the outreach program is one that is only successful when it keeps evolving. We do have to keep, whether it's technology or whether it's just what's resonating best with audiences. I think it is one of those things where we can't stay still. We just have to sort of keep, and I think that's part of what you're asking about. And that's across the board, in terms of approach. And I would just say, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, there is new legislation that is working its way. It's not adopted, but there is legislation that may impact parts of the outreach strategy, as it relates to having board members be, say, on printed billboards. That's something that we're watching, and to the extent that there is any movement there on the legislative front, we obviously would address that as part of any outreach that we do. But that's just a subset of kind of what's being talked about here. We've already been working on continually sort of changing and updating the strategy, wherever we feel there's opportunities to make it resonate best with residents.
Supervisor Robinson.
The keywords for me are buy-in. So for example, we now have had to take over a GSA. And the problem is that prior to this, sometimes the farmers don't always agree or trust the politicians. So my suggestion, just one to ponder, would be to get some of those individuals. I ended up with the dream team of farmers, and we take all their recommendations, and now they trust us. So the same thing can be applied here. If we reach out to those that we affect, like many of the farmers, et cetera, you might have another level of trust. So.
Okay. Jamie, do we want to hear from or introduce the folks from Hyphen? No. Okay. We don't. All right. Then we won't. Sorry. No, that's fine. Just want to give that opportunity. Do we have any public comment?
Okay, Bakersfield, do you have any public comments on this item?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comments?
No public comments in Modesto.
Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none and no indication of online comments.
Move to approve.
Was that Mr. Pereira? Hi, Lloyd. And we have a second by Dr. Sheriffs. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Chiesa,
It's an aye.
Mr. Couch, stepped away. Mrs. Scutia Brayton,
Aye.
Miss Lewis, Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Yes.
Ms. Schicklin.
Aye.
To the chair, motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, folks. Look forward to your work. And with that, I leave you all in good hands with Vice Chair McCauley.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Turn off your microphone.
I got long
You can
arms.
do that.
He's a
Safe
good
journey.
guy with a long
She,
arm.
she told you that you can trust me. So, before we jump back into the agenda, I just want to make a quick comment. You know, when I was thinking about, Amy let me know she wasn't going to make it through the full meeting. And so I was thinking about the opportunity to kind of lead the meeting. And I was looking all the way back to 2022 Supervisor Wheeler's last meeting when he showed up in a full metallic suit with like a weird wig on. And Vito told me that if I dare show up with that level of bravado, I was going to be in trouble. So no wig today, Vito. You're in good hands. But I did talk to Tom yesterday and he did want to tell everybody hello and thank you for all the good work. He says since his lungs are no good, he definitely appreciates everybody's hard work. So I just wanted to pass that along. So with that, we'll move on to item 9, continued implementation of updated incentive levels in the district's Adburn Alternatives Grant Program.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, Todd DeYoung, your grants program director. And just by way of a brief background, the district's Agburn phase out strategy has been fully implemented at this point. The Agburn Alternatives Grant Program has been working effectively in combination with the elements of the phase out strategy to ensure that growers throughout the district have options to deal with ag material in ways other than burning it. New alternatives have emerged over the last several years. They're being implemented. We've seen innovation in the space. And so things are really working out very well in terms of the phase out strategy in combination with the grant program. The current funding expenditure rate over the past 7 to 9 months has been significantly higher than what we've seen. There's a lot of factors that go into that, including issues related to SGMA, potential drought conditions, market pressures, particularly with vineyards. We're seeing a lot of vineyards being removed, and that's forecasted to continue over the next year at least. This has all led to sort of a higher participation rate in the program. And has led to sort of a higher utilization rate than we had initially forecasted for the year. And again, demand is expected to remain high for the foreseeable future. And so with that, the governor's proposed 26-27 budget does not currently include funding for this program. And so because of those issues, to address the funding shortfall and to be able to extend the program through the remainder of the fiscal year until new funding could be secured. Your board took action in April of 2026 to adopt 2 key emergency measures. The first one being an adjustment to incentive amounts. We basically lowered all the incentive amounts in the program strategically, and then the allocation of some additional funding. And those recommendations were developed in close coordination and in consultation with Valley Ag stakeholders. We've discussed these issues with CARB before your board approved them in April. They were implemented immediately upon approval by your board back in April. So literally the afternoon of the board meeting, those new incentive amounts went into effect and that new funding became available to us. The reduced incentive levels are allowing the district to stretch the available funding to offer funding to more Valley growers to maximize the impact of what's become limited available funding in the program. Just as a reminder, and this was in your packet as well as the April board item, these are the, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these two tables, but these are the previous funding levels, what we went from. And then this next table shows you the reduced incentive levels that we went to. And you can also see that we split large and small growers to create a third category. And as your board has consistently made a priority, the smallest growers are receiving the highest incentives, and that's because they have conditions that some of the larger growers don't have to deal with in terms of economies of scale and getting folks out to assist with their soil incorporation needs. So it's always been a consistent priority from your board to offer those highest incentive amounts to those smallest growers. And that's reflected in these new incentive amounts that were approved in April. Of course.
Sorry, question on the previous slide. Cane pruned and cordon pruned. What is it?
So cane prune is, so the issue with cordon prune is it gets embedded wires. The way that they prune the material allows the material to wrap around the wire, the wire that holds up the vineyards, whereas cane prune doesn't have that issue. And when you're dealing with chipping and shredding and reincorporating, the cordon prune is a much more labor intensive and a more difficult material to deal with because of that embedded wire. It's almost impossible to separate the wire from the cordon. And so it requires more effort and in some cases different strategies to deal with that. A lot of the grinders that were initially used in the program, we employed things like magnets to kind of suck the metal out as it was being ground up with some success. But it's a more difficult and more labor intensive way of dealing with that material. The cane pruned is much easier. There's not as much embedded wire. It's a lot easier to kind of separate that wire. It can be pulled out initially. And then the material can be ground and reincorporated versus the cordon it's got that embedded wire in it, of course. So with the approved reduction in incentives, along with the additional funding that was approved in April, we are confident that the program will have enough funding to make it through the end of this fiscal year. With approximately 6 weeks of data since the April board meeting, we have basically those emergency measures are doing what we intended them to do. We've seen a reduction in the average grant amount. That middle column there, average grant amount, is really what you want to key in on this slide. It has gone down by about 37% on average. If you look at the number of vouchers issued, you may assume that it also resulted in lower participation rates, which is actually not true. The summer months, May, June, July, and even into August, traditionally always see a lower participation rate because of just the cycle of agriculture and the nature of sort of the industry. In fact, we went and looked at the May of 2025 and May of 2024, and within a couple of vouchers, they were very consistent numbers. So the number of vouchers issued, the drop between that January, March to the May timeframe is not due to the reduced incentive amounts. In fact, we continue to see very robust participation in the program. We haven't seen really any drop off whatsoever in the participation rates since implementing these new measures. And so this year's incentive spending plan for the district, which was just approved by your board at the beginning of this meeting as part of the budget, does include about $27.5 million for the program for the next fiscal year. Unfortunately, this represents about half of what we've seen traditionally and about half of what the need is on an annual basis since the full implementation of the ag burn phase out strategy. The future allocations for this program are really going to be dependent on state investment in this program. The state really needs to come to the table with a sustained funding stream for this program. Towards that end, we've requested $75 million annually statewide for the next 5 years to sustain the implementation of the ag burn strategy and to support this program and to support Valley growers. We've had elected officials in the legislature, they've submitted budget requests seeking to fund the program at that $75 million level for the next 5 years. And again, without timely legislative action, California really risks, and not just the Valley, but California really risks losing these critical air quality gains that we've got from the program and compromising the continued feasibility of our entire ag burn strategy and the progress that we've made to date in that space and creating a new market. And while the state budget is generally required to be adopted by June 15th, which it was on Monday, it's anticipated that there's a lot of specific spending plans. So it was the budget was basically a general framework for a lot of these programs. And now the devil's in the details about where these individual programs and where the individual funding goes in each one of those programs, including key revenue sources such as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, GGRF. Those are going to be developed sometime throughout this summer, and we should, by August or September, we should know where those specific funding sources land. And again, this creates ongoing uncertainty as to the program, and so until that's completely settled for this fiscal year, there's going to be that remaining uncertainty. To sort of further muddy the waters a little bit, CARB has recently adopted amendments to the Cap and Invest program, and there are significant potential impacts to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, how much money is available for specific programs. And so there's going to be significant negotiations and complexity to any potential funding allocations to this and other key clean air programs over the next several months. There's just a lot up in the air right now. So based on this uncertainty, what we're proposing today is to recommend to extend the updated emergency incentive levels for the foreseeable future. The program's working. We continue to see high participation rates. And with the uncertainty that I've talked about at the state budget and with all of the sort of the negotiations still to come, we feel like this is the appropriate time to extend those emergency measures out for the foreseeable future. At the same time, we're going to continue our aggressive advocacy at the state and federal level. We're looking at all sorts of different opportunities to provide funding for this and other key programs, both at the state and federal level. And we're working closely with our legislative delegation to pursue that substantial funding that we believe is necessary for the program and for the ag burn phase out strategy as a whole. And we'll continue, obviously, to revisit this issue and return to your board as necessary with any key updates to potential funding for this program. And so with that, your recommendations are before you, but it's basically just to improve those, the continuation of those board-approved updated incentive levels that I talked about earlier for the foreseeable future. So with that, I will return it to your board, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation.
Of course.
Look to my colleagues for any comments or questions they may have. Sheriff?
I have a question. So I'm sorry, what was the total allocation for 2025, 2026?
It was about $54 million.
Okay. And a long-term question, because dealing with the woody waste, that's part of the normal turnover of replanting, going from whatever to whatever. At what point is the agricultural community seeing this? I'll call it reincorporation as a single word, but the reincorporation without ag burning. Where does that get baked in? That dealing with the woody waste is part of the capital investment in the next generation of whatever we're growing.
Through the chair, I could, Todd, feel free to add to this. I think it's a really important question. I mean, I think that is ultimately the fundamental question as we continue moving forward with the agricultural open burning phase out. We're in the midst of I would say the early phase of the final phase out. We're a little bit over a year, into the final pieces of that. It's happening at the same time that Sigma implementation, the things that Todd mentioned earlier, without repeating some of the unique factors that are resulting in many pullouts, more than usual, even when you go back and look at historical levels. There's a lot of shifts that are happening. And so I think we're definitely confident that today this market is still emerging, in terms of everything from chipping. There's actually some really interesting things that are happening with offsite beneficial reuse. It was one of these additional components of the program that the board added that encourages other things besides just chipping and soil incorporation. Could be a road dust amendment. There's a number of different things that have come up. A lot of ideas, a lot of innovation. Bioenergy is another area where there's been conversations, very slow moving for most things outside of chipping and soil incorporation. There's long lead times, very, very expensive, many thousands per acre, basically to deal with the chipping and then the spreading and the many passes that you have to do to work it back into the ground at a deep till sort of level. So I think that it's clear that for now, we need to really just continue to support the transition. We're in the middle of it right now. As to how long that happens, I think it's going to be a function of a couple of different things. Do we see a little bit more stability, in valley agriculture with respect to the amount of vineyards and orchards that are being pulled? Do we see some level of stability in terms of the availability of contractors and pricing on, in terms of across different size range of farms? And there's some unique considerations there as well. Do we see any additional state funding support? I think at some point, if we can, there are funds through Prop 4, for example. There's other goals. Been having some great conversations recently with Supervisor McCauley, for example, around how we can integrate some of our effort with some of the Sigma related efforts as, fallowing increases, and just trying to think of ways to make this basically work at the end. I think that over time, and this is something that we're committed to studying as well. I think for now, for this fiscal year, we have a fallback plan with the funding that the board has allocated and the advocacy. And it's going to be a constant question actually in front of the board every year as we think about funding allocation, especially if we don't get state funding support. Using the limited dollars that we have available, what's the best use of those funds? And that's why I think that, as Todd mentioned earlier, I think that we are comfortable allocating some funding at a lower level today, but over time, for a variety of reasons, whether it's lack of support from the state, but also where the markets themselves, it's going to be one of those questions that will be in front of us, I think, every year. And one thing we have to be very cautious with is that if we're not careful with having solutions for ag, that help defray some of these costs, especially with the markets that are still sort of in midst of emerging, there could be a very real case at some point that compromises the actual phase out itself. And I think that's something that we have to be very, very cautious, very aware of that this phase out is only in the San Joaquin Valley. It's in no other part of the state, no other part of the country. Is really just here. And it's here because of the air quality challenge that we have and the benefits that we're gaining from that. But we have to ultimately, as a region, make sure it's working and that it's feasible and that we don't, we've heard of many abandoned orchards, abandoned vineyards. There are rodent issues. There's a number of different issues that have come up recently. It's a very precarious situation. So we have to just kind of keep our eye on that and make sure, that we have solutions at the end.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think we all kind of see the cliff coming here at a local level, so I think it's important we keep on the pressure, step on the gas and keep advocating for this. So Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah, well, thank you, Todd, for all your work on this program. It's a very important program. I think part of the problem right now is we're looking at a tunnel. There's a light down there in the tunnel. But that doesn't mean that we're going to get out there. That means that a train's heading our way pretty damn quick. We haven't even begun to deal with Sigma. Haven't even begun. And this could be a problem where we end up with abandoned orchards and vineyards, which is worse, I think, than burning them. Yeah, this is worse. So, we really gotta, be prepared. And I know Dr. Sheriff was talking about woody waste. Well, trees and vines are different than if you're, harvesting grain, if you're harvesting corn, if you're shredding cotton stalks, there's a lot of canning tomatoes grown, in this part of the valley and even north, but that's a different waste that goes behind, easily worked in. But woody waste, you're looking for trouble because of nematodes and fighting soil disease. You can't even use fumigates like we could. And I'm hoping, Roger's going to speak that, used to be able to fumigate the ground. That's getting cut back more and more. So all you're doing is loading up your soil with potential problems when it comes to woody waste. So I think this is an atypical, California socialist deal, where they forget about the valley and, this isn't an issue in the Bay Area or Southern California, so they don't care. And they don't listen to our assemblymen and state senators. Doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican, they're not listened to. But there needs to be way more money the state needs to put, and especially they're way better off just parking the high-speed rail and spending that money on programs like this. So all I'm doing, this is a statement, not a question. And I've got to tell you too, you did a great job of answering Rusty's question there. I thought for somebody that doesn't farm, man, you were right on it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the statement, Supervisor. Unless there are any additional comments from my colleagues, we're going to look to the public for any public comment they may have.
Okay, Bakersfield, do you have any public comment?
No public comments from the south.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comments?
No public comments in Modesto.
Okay, seeing no indication online, I do see a few in Fresno. We'll go here for public comment.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Vice Chair and members of the board. Let me just state up front, Roger Ison with Western Tree Nut Association fully support the proposal today. Just want to make a couple of comments and address some of the questions that have been raised by the board. I do want to recognize the district. We've actually been in Sacramento with them lobbying for this money to really fund this program. But long-term, which I think Dr. Sheriff was pointing towards, we've always seen this as just a gap filler, just until we can get to a technology or set of technologies that can address the woody material that's left behind from orchard removal and that. And to Buddy's point, you're absolutely right. We're far from over. There's a lot more coming. Just in wine grapes, there's probably another 30,000 plus acres that are going to come out. Untold thousands of acres of almonds and that they're going to come out as well because of Sigma. I will say, not only do we need the funding for the interim gap, but the district just helped us permit our first biochar facility at an almond huller in Tulare County. It's the first one for us. We're finally starting to see, I'll use your term, light at the end of the tunnel, but actually for some of these technologies that we've been hoping for, praying for years, start to come to fruition. Many of the people we used to meet with said, well, I need, umpteen millions of dollars from federal funding to make it work. I need this, I need that. The technology is where it is today. They're not asking for money and they're actually being built. We've got another one that's going to take orchard removal, and through a process, right now it's been done at UC Riverside. They're actually siting at one of my almond hullers up here in Fresno County to convert it into a usable fiber. And so it's beyond the drawing board technology. It's actually something that's being sold. I've got another biochar facility that's actually looking for 5-year commitments of material because they've got that much sales of the material. So we think it's there. We still need the bridge, though, funding to get us through the process. But I want to say we support the program and appreciate all the efforts the district's made to address this.
Thank you for your comments.
Morning, Manuel Cunha, Farmers League. First, I want to thank Todd. Yes, he does have the farmer boots on. And that's been a requirement at this district, that this executive team has to have farmer's boots and getting them dirty and actually going into the field. So I do appreciate Samir's, one of his major requirements is they have to be a farmer type and have to get dirty. So, but I want to thank again and support this absolutely 100%. And the other group that is supporting this is the California African American Farmers, small farmer group, very small group of farmers, but absolutely do and support this program because that's how it helps them. If not, they can't do it. And they have small acreages. I think the big thing here is that we have been communicating heavily with the legislature. I know for me, I don't go to Sacramento very much because of just can't, because to keep OSHA off our farms has been a challenge. They know when we leave and they come out and do enforcement. That is insane, absolutely insane. So, but I thank Roger and all of the team and Samir, all of the work that you guys have done in supporting that. USDA, we brought that up as a discussion with the deputy administrator from Region 2. We met with this week, and we talked about increasing funding and making sure funding can work for farm tractors and agricultural waste that we get rid of. But a question was asked, buddy, and that question is absolutely correct. And even I appreciate Samir's efforts. If we don't get help, as I came down I-5 last week or this week, I saw more than thousands of acres of almonds in big windrows pulled out, just sitting, abandoned. Now that causes a lot of problems for those neighboring farmers all around. But we do have an increase of rat problems, disease problems. And you can't incorporate Phytophthora, or you can't incorporate those type of diseases that have to be either burned or removed totally from the area because of the amount of activity that could take place in the soil. We don't have the chemicals. But also there was a comment made about this abandonment of orchards. If the county takes over it, the county has to then pay prevailing wages for that farmer, for that stuff to get rid of. That'll never happen. The cost will go out of control. So somehow that has to be looked at. This abandonment of an orchard, and the ag commissioner has to take over it, needs to be in a regular system, not in adverse wage rates of prevailing wages. That just doesn't make any sense. Again, we support the effort in keeping it going. We want to not burn, but if we're put up against the wall, we have no choice at the end. We will burn. We have no choice. Thanks.
Thank you, Manuel. Any additional public comment?
No. Don't see any further comments.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Mrs. Scutia Brayton,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs.
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you for that. So we'll move on to item 10, verbal report on state and federal advocacy efforts surrounding the district's air quality budget priorities and legislative session. Morning.
Good morning, Vice Chair, members of the board. Mark Montalongo, Director of Policy and Government Affairs, here to provide you an update on state and federal legislative activities so far during this session. The district has a long history of developing and implementing air quality strategies with plans achieving significant emission reductions. Our stationary source regulations since the 1990s have achieved over a 94% reduction in NOx emissions, which is one of the primary drivers of both ozone and PM 2.5. Our incentive programs, are the gold standard throughout the state and nationally for achieving emission reductions, with over $7.2 billion in public-private partnership for voluntary incentive programs, which is a huge benefit for improving air quality and public health here in the Valley. While significant progress has been made, over 80% of the NOx emissions in the Valley are from mobile sources. So in order for us to meet our air quality mandates, strong state and federal support is needed. At the beginning of each year, your board approves the district's legislative platform that helps guide our advocacy efforts in support of this critical mission. Wanted to start out at the state level and just highlight a couple of bills of interest, broken up into two categories here: bills that are no longer active, meaning they're dead, or bills that are still active. Starting with AB 1777 Garcia, which was introduced by Assemblymember Robert Garcia, would have clarified CARB's authority to regulate emissions linked to indirect sources. This bill did not pass the Assembly House of Origin May 29th deadline, so this bill is no longer active. This bill was introduced similarly last year and was pulled mid-session by the author. SB 1039, introduced by Senator Grove, would have required additional guidance and provisions allowing for the exclusion of pollutants for fence line monitoring. This bill was set on Senate appropriations and did not get out. Therefore, this bill is no longer active. Moving to the next category of bills that are active, beginning with AB 2349, which was introduced by Assemblymember Jose Salache, which provides resources for regional network of air quality incident response centers operated by local air districts to facilitate emergency air monitoring response. Given what was recently transpired with the warehouse fire in Tracy, this bill would provide critical support to local air districts in order to facilitate emergency air monitoring response at the local and regional level. The author seeking a $5 million ongoing appropriation for this work. This bill did pass the Assembly House of Origin deadline on May 29th and has been referred to the Committee on Environmental Quality. So given the district is part of a association with 35 air districts across the state through the California Air Pollution Controls Officers Association, a support position has been taken on this bill. Moving to the next bill, AB 2635, which was introduced by Assembly Member Celeste Rodriguez, essentially requires each large and medium air district no later than January 1st of 2028 to implement a commercial voucher program for zero emission small off-road equipment to the extent funding is available. There are a few problematic issues with this bill that we're currently working through. The bill passed the Assembly May 29th House of Origin deadline and has been double referred to the Committee on Environmental Quality and the Committee on Local Government. So we are following that process, and through CAPCOA, an opposed position has been taken on this bill. SB 1075, introduced by Senator Elise Reyes, requires local governments and AB 617 communities to consider community emission reduction plan recommendations when approving large commercial industrial developments. It elevates community business organization developed LCIRCs, also known as local community emission reduction plans, to CARB approved community emission reduction plans, and increases the longevity of community steering committees and AB 617 planning efforts. Through CAPCOA, there's an opposed position on this bill, and we're continuing to monitor the bill as it progresses. Moving on, under the district's leadership, we've had success in working with our stakeholders and legislative delegation to secure substantial funding in the state budget, over $1 billion over the past 10 years. As we all know, in recent years, the state budget has experienced some challenges and budget deficits, reducing the availability of funding for clean air programs. For example, farmer funds have been reduced from a peak of $150 million to zero in 25-26. But we've had some success in securing community air protection funds, $100 million statewide in 25-26, and $250 million through a continuous appropriation moving forward. We're continuing to actively work and engage with the broad coalition of Valley and other stakeholders to ensure our funding priorities continue to be communicated through the legislative process. So our air quality priorities this year include farmer. As you're aware, there's significant demand in the program. over $600 million in pending shovel-ready applications. As noted, the Legislative Analyst Office has determined this program to be one of the most cost-effective programs in terms of dollars per ton in achieving emission reductions. And I think more importantly, this oversubscribed program provides SIP credible emission reductions, which are critical for meeting our attainment deadlines. Overall, a win-win in improving air quality and contributing to the state in achieving its air quality and climate goals. Won't touch too much on the alternatives to open burning. I think you heard in the previous item, we're seeking $75 million statewide and annually over the next 5 years. Critical program that funding is needed for, and also seeking $200 million a year statewide for clean vehicles and equipment funding. This investment in the sector would be critical to addressing the significant emissions deficit created by the loss of the state's waivers. Funding would accelerate the deployment of cleaner technologies in heavy-duty trucks, off-road equipment, locomotives, and also passenger vehicles such as Clean Cars for All. The governor released his January budget. There was estimated $2.9 billion deficit compared to the LAO's $18 billion deficit. Funding for the Community Air Protection Program had $177 million, and funding for a new light-duty ZEV incentive program of $200 million. Just last month, the governor released his May revised budget proposal, which basically characterized the budget as being balanced due to increased revenues, income tax returns, capital gains, stock market performance, big AI boom in the stock market, increased revenues. There was funding for the Community Air Protection Program at $131 million, and funding for the new light-duty ZEV incentive program at $200 million, and funding for scientific research between CARB and a WEHA at $2.5 million. And there's still no funding for the district's clean air priorities, such as farmer alternatives to ag burn and Clean Cars for All. You might be thinking the reduced amount between the Community Air Protection Program from January to May. This funding comes from the greenhouse gas reduction funds, as Todd mentioned during his previous, kind of touched on it a little bit in his previous presentation, pursuant to Senate Bill SB 40 Lamone that was adopted last year. The reduced amount essentially accounts for the declining quarterly auction revenues under the Cap and Invest program, which overall impacts the state ability to fund the commitments that are identified in SB 840. The Citizens Advisory Committee has submitted letters to the governor and the legislature in support of the district's clean air priorities. The district's funding priorities are communicated at legislative hearings and in the form of budget requests from members in the legislature. More recently, on May 29th, CARB adopted amendments to the Cap and Invest regulation intended to align the program with legislative direction and climate targets. Amendments estimated to reduce GGRF revenues by approximately 15% compared to prior expectations. So over the next 4 years, estimated about $8 billion. So about $2 billion per year annually over the next 4 years. Reduced revenues increase uncertainty regarding the state's ability to fund SB 840 commitments, including the Community Air Protection and Farmer Program. We continue to actively engage with CARB, the legislature, and the governor's office on our clean air priorities. The legislature had until midnight on Monday, June 15th, to adopt the state budget, and they did that through AB 109. This action basically defers major decisions regarding the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and other critical air quality funding, likely until the end of session. Until then, we continue to aggressively advocate at the state level, working closely with our stakeholders and our Valley delegation to continue pursuing substantial and sustained funding for districts' clean air priorities. On the federal side, I wanted to just provide a little updates of some of the work we've been doing on the federal side. We currently have 2 congressionally directed spending request projects in the queue. We have a freight rail modernization project of $2 million to replace 2 high polluting locomotives operating in the valley with cleaner, more efficient locomotives, and that's being carried forth through Senator Padilla's office. We have an alternatives to open burning project of $1 million to support, the incentives on the alternatives to ag burning side, and that's being carried forth through Senator Schiff's office. We continue to engage with USDA and NRCS to pursue regional conservation partnership program, also known as our CPP, funding opportunities that support our air quality improvements, conservation efforts, and climate benefits here in the Valley. Also on the federal side, we continue to stay engaged with Valley delegation as it relates to the Farm Bill provisions and Senate Agricultural Committee to support our clean air initiatives, ongoing initiatives such as alternatives to open burning and ag equipment grant programs. Also on the federal side, we continue to stay actively engaged with the US EPA and the Valley delegation to ensure the protection and to secure, federal funding of Clean Air Act 103, 105 grants, targeted airshed grants, and Diesel Emission Reduction Act grants, also known as DARA. The Clean Air Act 103, 105 grants support our ongoing work to implement the Clean Air Act mandates that we have to, meet, and standards we have to meet, federal standards. The TAG funding supports our emission reduction initiatives such as fireplace and wood stove changeouts, low dust harvesters, and heavy off-road and on-road equipment. The DARA funding supports projects that reduce diesel emissions through the replacement and upgrade of agricultural equipment, school buses, and locomotives. Currently, we're preparing for submitting DARA and TAG projects under the anticipated NOFO that's expected to be released. And we are always seeking, if there's federal programs out there and applying for putting forward competitive projects. We're currently developing a grant proposal under the CRISI program, and also developing a competitive grant proposal for the reduction of truck emissions at port facilities. So we continue to kind of leave no stone unturned, looking for opportunities where we can bring competitive projects and funding here to the Valley. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to make a closing kind of comment. As you can tell from Mark's update, we're very active in proactively pushing for funding. I just want to acknowledge and really express our appreciation to board members who have also, it takes a village to do this advocacy, and the board has been terrific at looking for opportunities to weigh in, whether it's talking to senators when they're visiting the Valley, going to DC, just looking whether it's through your own bodies as well, and supporting the efforts. Just want to really appreciate how much energy goes into supporting all this work. We are really excited about some of these opportunities that Mark just mentioned. It takes a lot of work to pull these projects together. There is quite a bit of opportunity, and I think to really, at the end, in a highly competitive environment, bring some of those funding to the Valley. We're going to need to really continue pulling together as a region, getting strong support at every level. So we plan on keeping you in a loop on this. We've had some good conversations recently with a few of the board members, and this is really for the entire board to really continue supporting those efforts. We'll make sure we share information with you about these upcoming specific proposals, and to the extent you can continue assisting and getting strong support from the Valley to push for these in, again, highly competitive environment. That's going to be just a thank you in advance for that as well. So just with that, I'll turn it back to you, Vice Chair, and the board for any questions.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Samir, for that. Any comments, questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, we'll look to the public for any public comment.
Bakersfield, do you have any public comment?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comment?
No public comments in Modesto.
Okay, are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
Excellent. Thank you. So this is just a report, so no action is needed. So we will move on to item 11, a verbal report on Clean Air Act implementation. Good morning.
Chairman, members of the board, Tim Franquist, Air Quality Director here at the district. I'll be giving the update this morning on what was a pretty busy, I think, past month. So we'll just jump right into it. We'll just go through kind of our background slides here, just kind of set up the table here. We've seen this one before, and again, I love this slide because I think it really illustrates the physical challenge that we have here in the valley, almost sea level valley against a 14,000 foot wall. So we do have a very significant topographic and meteorological challenge that we have here in the valley, along with and we've heard many times even here this morning, just a major mobile source category. Of course, mobile sources are with CARB or the federal government, and we see most of our emissions, particularly with PM 2.5 and ozone, coming from this source. And again, just kind of setting up the construct here. We have the Congressional Federal Clean Air Act that sets the statutory national ambient air quality deadlines. So that's the chemicals that we regulate, establishes the deadlines for attainment, and then it puts the classifications in there as far as a congressional act. The EPA is where a lot of the rubber starts to hit the roads. They actually develop the specific NAC standards, required to review those every 5 years, make attainment demonstrations, and then ultimately enforce our state implementation plans. And then again, the district, I think, is where the real action is. This is where we regulate at the local level, stationary sources, area sources. Again, these incredible incentive programs that we've heard this morning, our permits and compliance program. CARB does have certain area sources and certainly the mobile source category as well. So kind of jumping into our progresses again, and we hear a lot of challenges back and forth. We'll hear kind of a mixed bag here today, but I think it's a great slide to start with is that the Valley has, again, just an incredible history of taking on these challenges. So as we see these new standards come into place, get more stringent over time, again, we have just an incredible track record of taking on those challenges, developing maintenance plans to ensure compliance with those standards over the 20-year period. But with that, we still have plenty of ways to go on the current the NAC standards. Again, a very tried and true formula that we have at the district, and that is effective rules. So not just stringent rules, but effective rules, very effective incentive program. That can't be done without an incredibly strong stakeholder relationship. And that's obviously with local businesses, our agricultural community, valley residents, and of course, public agencies. And the proof is right there with the reductions that we've seen since 1980. They're absolutely substantial. So this is a formula that works, one that we continue to leverage here at the district. Okay, kind of jumping into our actual updates here. So this is on the 2006 24-hour PM 2.5 standard. This is a plan that was developed initially in 2018 for the standard. It did include the 5-year extension that we had been speaking about pretty extensively. That was originally approved in 2021 on June 10th of 2026. EPA did actually publish a final action reversing that 5-year extension. And what that did is it defaulted the attainment date back to 2019. As we had kind of set up the discussion before, we did somewhat see this coming or did see this coming. So this will require us to do what's referred to as the 5% plan. And that's a requirement to reduce our direct or indirect PM 2.5, so in this case, NOx, by 5% every year until we reach attainment. So a bit of a challenging plan, also a bit of a challenging timeline. We get 1 year to do that. So we've already begun preliminary work to start that project. The other piece that comes with that finding a failure to attain with that 2019 date are contingency measures, which are required to kick in 60 days. And I'll quickly go through those. But as we go through the slide deck, we've kind of added another piece. Some of this gets to be a little sounding like doom and gloom, and where do we kind of sit in the true spectrum of attainment. What we started to put here are some graphics on where we were as a valley as far as peak concentrations. I think it's important to point out as we go through these challenges, we've come a long way. And so we've seen peak concentrations as high as 104 micrograms per cubic meter. We're down to 42, so we're getting very close to the standard, 80% of that standard. So we're getting there. We're making great progress. 77% of our monitors are actually showing attainment. So again, as we talk about these challenges up there, we are making substantial progress forward. With the contingency measures that will be kicked off in 60 days, the first one here is our open areas and diffusion of dust rule, so rule 8051. And what this will do is lower our rule threshold from 3 acres to 1 acres, requiring a 20% opacity limit with kind of a menu-based option as how the owner would take control of that property. In past research, what it looked like is about 10,000, close to 11,000 parcels and about 18,000 acres that would be subject to this rule. The second contingency trigger is this residential wood burning, rule 4901. What this does is aligns non-hotspot counties with the hotspot county threshold. So level 1 will now, for everybody in the valley, all counties in the valley, will be 12 micrograms, and the second trigger will be 35 micrograms. The third trigger is another smog check trigger. And so currently, all vehicles 8 years and older are subject to the smog check. With the failure to attain on the 1997 standard, that triggered that 7-year smog check. So that will happen in 2027. And then with this, obviously, this 2006 failure to attain, it'll trigger the 6-year exemption requirement. CARB has not stated when that will happen yet, so that's still being determined as to when that will be effective. But we can probably anticipate sometime after 2028. Moving on to the 2012 annual PM 2.5 standard. This is better news. So the board had adopted this plan in June 20th of 2024. This is the one that had extensive control strategies with both stationary sources and mobile sources that were impacted by the waivers. This is the other 5-year extension that we had been talking about, the one we very much needed and wanted. On June 4th, 2026, EPA did propose approval of that 5-year extension. So this is a huge success. So while it's a proposal, we anticipated getting across the line. So we have 30 days. We'll see that hopefully happen. But again, a huge success, and I think a testament to the incredible amount of effort that went into advocating for this 5-year extension. It's key that we get there. Obviously, we would have to do another 5% plan had we had not gotten that 5-year extension. So again, this is a huge win for us. And again, just kind of counterposing that with where we are just in terms of air quality trends. We can see here we had a peak of 24.7 micrograms several years ago. We were actually down to 13.7. So again, making tremendous progress here. We're 87% of the way to winning this game, with 72% of the monitors actually showing attainment. So again, we're well on our way to success. All right, moving on to the ozone standard. Again, this has been certainly a challenging situation. The board adopted this plan in 2022. Again, had many measures of both stationary and mobile sources. The mobile sources emission reductions obviously impacted by the withdrawal and disapproval of the CARB waivers. There was a lawsuit filed in 2024 that was compelling the EPA to make a final decision on this plan by July 17th. It was just renegotiated to January 15th, 2027. So that gives some really incredible breathing room and a couple issues that still need to be sorted out. So I think this is a good positive in that regard. CARB was originally noticing the plan to go in front of their board for June. It's been bumped out to July. So that plan is up for review for anyone to take a look at. The key piece of that plan is it does contain what's referred to as the 182E5 black box. So many of those emission shortfalls that were part of the CARB mobile source waivers will go into what's referred to as the black box. And what that does is allow you to defer those emission reductions to a later date when those control technologies are better developed and more effective. And just again, just in terms of another really great success story, we can see that the peak design value here was 123 several years ago. We're down to 87. So again, just an incredible drop in emissions. We're 68% of the way to making this the standard. And then just moving on to just overall contingency plan. In 2024, the board did adopt a contingency plan to cover both the 2008 ozone standard and the 2015 ozone standard. The EPA in June 4th, 2026, just conditionally approved the 2008 portion of this plan. Below here, you can see the district had committed in that plan to 5 coding rules. So this is to help lower some of the BOC content and look to potentially remove some of the exemptions in those rules. Again, we have 1 year under a conditional approval to do that. So we well along the road on doing this work. A lot of the behind the scenes has been done. So again, we have 1 year to get this done with an anticipated workshop coming in 2020, summer 2026. Unfortunately, transportation conformity hasn't quite left us here. So transportation conformity is the program that anytime you're using federal funds for transportation projects, you can't allow those projects to exceed the air quality standards. There were some changes with MFAC. I think we worked through that issue. There were some challenges with the 2022 ozone plan and their motor vehicle emission budgets. That was requiring the local MPOs to go on a basin-wide process to be able to meet those motor vehicle emission budgets. With that plan being kicked out to January 2027, it's kind of shifted the issue where we had talked about the 70 parts per billion motor vehicle emission budgets being kind of the challenge if EPA approved that plan in July. It's kind of shifted the issue now to the 75 parts per billion. This is the 2008 portion of it, because these MPOs need a change in the ROG standards. That's the basically the VOC, or the reactive organic gas. So it just kind of unfortunately kind of switched which one is of importance. So a lot of discussion on this one with the MPOs right now. They need this ideally by August, an approval by EPA. So again, we're just advocating on their part that everybody's doing their piece to kind of getting the EPA's ear and getting this one done. In terms of our own rules, this story is actually getting a little bit better. I think last time we presented this, still true in a lot of ways. We do have several rules that are 3 to 4 years old sitting with the EPA. Again, as those rules get kind of aged out, the underlying science, technology, calculations, they too can unfortunately become dated. So that becomes more problematic the longer they sit. There is good news that EPA just in June did approve 3 LDAR rules. So this was a big package for us. So it's very, very significant. We're very happy about this. We still have a pretty laundry list that you can see below, but we'll take this success as pretty big, because a lot of those rules, like I said, have been sitting for 2 or 3 years, and in some cases up to 4. Then in terms of our own rule development here, we are beginning the process for the fence line monitoring for metal shredding facilities. This is more out of Assembly Bill 2851. That's requiring all air districts that have facilities that crush vehicles, appliances, and just metal in general. So it has to be all 3 of those have to do fence line monitoring for lead, cadmium, zinc, and nickel. And that's going to be based on the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. They're going to come up with these thresholds, or they may have them already developed. In cases where those potential thresholds are exceeded, there's supposed to be a communication process that goes along with that. We're going to plan to have our first scoping meeting on July 1st, 2026 to go through that process and explain a bit more about it. Today, we're also still reviewing our previous 2024 PM 2.5 commitments. That's the 4550, the conservation management practices, and also the 4901 wood burning heaters. So we're continuing to review those. And just lastly, not to leave necessarily on a sour note, but just as far as why is this all important? Well, it's of course to realize air quality benefits as soon as possible for public health purposes, but also to avoid any kind of permitting offsets that really impact that program. The loss of potential highway monies, which of course is huge, 4.6 million plus all the jobs along with that. And then, I'm sorry, did I say with a B, with billion, 4.6 billion, much more significant. And then, of course, federal takeover, loss of local control, which is also very significant. So. And with that,
through the chair, just a closing kind of comment. You just heard a lot of complex information. Despite our best efforts to break it down and distill it into individual pieces, I know can often feel overwhelming in terms of there's a lot of different standards, a lot of different parts. I think if I say overall what's going on, just pick it up another level. We've definitely made some significant improvements recently in working with both CARB and EPA to move forward a number of key actions. You heard both on PM 2.5 and on ozone. There were significant number of new proposals for approval. So I think that engagement as complex as it may seem at times between the state government and the federal government, and then working locally with us, it's borne some fruit. I think there's been some positive developments there. Again, a large part of that is through the advocacy of the board in working with the state and also with the federal EPA to actually move forward on things that this board adopts and submits to EPA can sit there for quite a while. So amidst all of the information that Tim here just shared, just want to make sure that's a takeaway. And then the other takeaway is that the work continues in earnest. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. A lot of it, there's workshops that were mentioned, whether it's regulatory, whether it's the planning, whether it's the engagement with both CARB and EPA on pending submissions. That is going to continue to happen. There's been a lot of positive developments there, and we're going to continue coming back to the board and reporting to the public as new things happen in that space, just given how important this is. One of the most important roles that the Air District plays is making sure that we're complying with the Clean Air Act requirements. And so just wanted to give you a little bit of a higher level kind of view as to what's going on. With that, we'll take any questions.
Tim?
Thank you.
Yeah. And if we get too confused, we can just look at the wall and we can point to the 94% reduction. So that's great. So Rusty.
That's my favorite graphic. Fence line monitoring, just if you could define that.
Chairman, members of the board. Yep. Fence line monitoring would be monitoring that's going to be required at the outer boundaries of a facility. What that would be is we're still working through what that monitor exactly would look like, but just in conceptual, it would be a monitor or monitors located at some portion of the property that would be representative of where emissions may go if there is something kicked up from one of these shredder facilities. The idea that any of that material being blown around or coming off some of the equipment, is it moving off site, and if so, is the community being informed on what that exposure might be?
And through the chair, just one other, I think, important piece of information is that under that state law, there are two facilities in the San Joaquin Valley that are subject to those requirements. One up in the North Valley and one in the South Valley. And so we're working through statewide interagency as well, because it's really important as we think about these requirements that there's consistency and that we're all talking to each other. Some of these companies actually operate, in multiple locations and so across different regions, different air districts. So that engagement is continuing. We are going to workshop this, and ultimately at the end, we just need to make sure we satisfy the state requirements, take consider all important factors, including cost, technology, siting criteria, working with OEHA, DTSC is another agency that's actively involved, the primary regulator of metal shredding operations. And then just ultimately making sure these two facilities are complying with the new state requirements.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vice Chair, I'm sorry. On page 8, could you explain to me Rule 8051? Is that just specifically to ag area only, or is that ag that can be converted to something else such as residential or business? I know that once it's converted, this probably wouldn't be affected, but I'm not quite sure what this is entailed.
Well, sorry, I beat Tim to the mic punch here, so but feel free to add or modify. Just the simple answer to that is that this rule is specific to non-ag parcels. So we have other regulations that are related to managing dust on various agricultural activities. This is specific to residential and commercial. This is, just to simplify it in terms of what it generally, when you have an open, whether it's rural or urban, there are requirements for both in the rule. But if you have an open plot of land and you're needing to, say, disc it or mow it to deal with growth on that land, this is a rule that essentially helps manage dust from those activities.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
All right. I just have one quick question myself, which is in regards to the triggers on residential burning. There's still exemptions for folks up in like the mountain and rural communities in regards to that. I just want
just to confirm that the rules approach of regulating areas of the valley that have access to natural gas is unchanged, and then other areas that do not have access to natural gas, in more rural communities or maybe in some of the foothill mountain communities, yeah, the curtailments would not apply in those cases, although obviously the grants, outreach, and other educational work, would continue.
Thank you for that. So unless there are any additional comments or questions, we'll look to the public for any public comment they may have.
Okay, are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comments in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comments?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing no one in person and none online.
Thank you for that. So this is just a report, no action needed. So we will move on to item 12, technology disruption policy as required by Senate Bill 707.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the board. Morgan Lambert, Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer. Although I'm sure many of you are aware based on your other roles about some of the new requirements under SB 707, I'll just start with a quick recap, perhaps for some of those that aren't as familiar. Back in the end of last year, Senate Bill 707 was approved and signed by the governor, and it amended the Brown Act and added a bunch of new requirements, including a new definition for a so-called eligible legislative body, as well as a bunch of associated responsibilities and duties for such bodies. Just really quickly, that definition does pull in, cities and counties, as well as certain special districts, which obviously we are a special district. The eligibility thresholds for a special district mainly focused on larger districts, but it's any district, or one of the thresholds is any district that has a county that is more than 600,000 in population, as well as the district has more than 200 full-time employees. And so obviously we meet that definition. And so we do qualify as an eligible legislative body and are required to meet the requirements. One of the things that the eligible legislative bodies must do is provide two-way remote access to all their open meetings. And along with that, the body must approve in a publicly noticed open session meeting a policy for handling what happens if you have service disruption during that meeting, as it may affect that requirement for the two-way remote access. What it actually requires is by July 1, that so-called technology disruption policy actually be adopted by the board for the agency to implement. And that policy must address how we will handle a service disruption. Specifically, it must handle how the meeting would be recessed and or reconvened, as well as the types of restoration efforts that we must take in that period in the event of a service disruption. So what happens when a service is disrupted under the law now? First, either the presiding officer or the clerk must announce the disruption to the board or those present. Second, the open session of that meeting must be recessed. There can be no more public business conducted. However, if there are closed session items or other things that are on that agenda, those may be considered in that period of time. During that time, the staff must make good faith efforts to try to restore the service, through troubleshooting of both hardware and software, as well as working with our contracted providers or vendors, depending on what the circumstances are for that particular meeting. And then there's a process for reconvening the meeting under this scenario as well. Basically, either once service is restored, the meeting can obviously be reconvened, or after 1 hour has elapsed, whichever is earlier. On the reconvening side of things, obviously, if it's restored, you can get back to the process of conducting the meeting. If it's not restored within 1 hour, then the board needs to make a decision, kind of one of two options. One would be to adjourn or continue the meeting to a later date when service could be restored, or after a staff report on the efforts that were taken to bring the service back. If the board determines through a roll call vote and a finding that gets adopted that good faith efforts were in fact made, and that the public interest in continuing the meeting outweighs the interest that remote access be present, then they can proceed with the meeting. A couple of other key provisions. There is an exemption for emergency situations, so as defined under the government code in the Brown Act. So in those situations, you can proceed without the need for remote access. There's also some documentation requirements. The clerk needs to document the nature of disruption, and all that stuff needs to be put into the minutes. And then for us, because we're already operating remote access meetings, we don't foresee any fiscal impact associated with implementing these requirements. And to date, knock on wood, we haven't had any significant disruptions that would really cause challenges under this policy. So before you today is the recommendation to adopt the technology disruption policy, which is included in your board packet. And this would bring the district into compliance with the government code ahead of the July 1st deadline. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Morgan. Looks like we have a comment.
No, it's actually a question.
Oh.
Is now, what do we have to, we're basically doing all this right now. Is the stop rule the only thing different?
Under this part of it, yes, the stop in 1 hour
Yeah.
part of the rule, and the fact that we have to adopt this policy to formalize it all. Yeah.
Right. Because we don't have a policy because we're already doing it. And I want to ask council, what's an emergency?
There's specified reasons for an emergency.
Microphone.
What, you can tell me offline. I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't have the exact list in my head,
Yeah.
but there's specified just cause
Okay.
reasons that qualify as an emergency.
But there's actually a list.
There is a
of
list.
Stuff.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Member Robinson?
And is it just a simple majority vote to continue? After the hour, if we determine that our interests overweigh the public's interest, is it just simple majority?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, any additional comments, questions from my colleagues? Member Escudia Bratton.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. And this happened yesterday at a public meeting that I was at. What would be how would we handle a scenario where the visual is interrupted, but the audio remains?
The actual requirement is you either have to have audio or visual. I don't think it's that you have to have both. We probably need to look at the scenario. I'm not sure, like our technology people, if that's possible the way that we do it. Perhaps it could be. But we probably need to look at it in that instance and see like exactly what the source of the problem is. But I believe under the requirement, we don't actually have to have audio visual. It can be just like telephonic access as well to the meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
All right, unless there are any additional questions, we'll look to the public for any public comment they have.
I'm sorry, Bakersfield, do you have any public comments?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Modesto, do you have any public comment?
No public comment in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno? Seeing none and none online.
Excellent. This is an action item, so I'll look to my colleagues to approve. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Escutia Brayton,
Aye.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Present.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs.
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Excellent. With that, we'll move on to item 13, verbal report on California Air Resources Board activities.
Dr. Pacheco Warner is not here, who typically provides that report. The information is in the package. I'm happy to answer questions if the board has any, or we could, I think, just move on past the item.
Perfect. We'll move on to item 14, comments from our favorite APCO.
All right, so I am going to ask staff to put up a presentation that will not be long. Just a little bit of a couple of visual aids. I have a few items to update the board on. I want to start with a little bit of more information on the incident that happened this last week in Tracy. There was a large warehouse fire. You all received information on that. I'm sure you saw the news on this. Is a very high profile event. It's one where we were from very early on engaged with the county OES, and I wanted to right out the gate acknowledge and really appreciate Supervisor Rickman, whose district includes this location, who was really active from the minute this started, and as part of that, actually helped connect the county OES director with us, pulled us into the incident response to help with air quality, and I know there's a tremendous amount of coordination and partnership that happened in responding to this fire. This is an image of the warehouse that burned down. Again, this started early afternoon on Thursday, June 11th. If you saw and I'll show you a few images here. This really large warehouse very quickly actually was engulfed in fire and essentially burned down. I'll just share a few photos, and while I'm sharing these, we'll just give you a little bit of a sense of the role that we played in responding. Just provide some information that I think, as you heard from Mark earlier, kind of just outlines the critical role the Air District can play in helping deal with when we have situations like these. When we talked to county OES early on with the fire, some of the first things that we did were provide temporary air quality monitors. We actually deployed a couple of sensors to communities that were nearby the warehouse, and kind of working with the county and thinking about where they anticipated to see some of the impacts and concerns. Want to make sure that in addition to actually quite a few air monitors that were in the Tracy area, that we added and supplemented that with some additional monitors to help residents in the area understand what the concerns or understand kind of what the impacts were and address their concerns. As part of that, we also worked with the county and also with the Weather Service on forecasting and thinking about what the meteorology was, what anticipated impacts there might be under different scenarios, and really thinking ahead in that moment, but also in the next day and beyond to really start also kind of honing in on the third major area that we played a role on, which was the outreach, and talking to the county OES outreach team, and then as Jamie, who's here next to me, as we saw being interviewed many times by media from different parts, Bay Area, Sacramento, local media. We played a really big role in coordinating with the county on messaging, making sure we were on the same page about concerns, how to address those concerns, pointing to the health department's landing page, the county's landing page, and just trying to make sure that we're following the incident response process and coordinating, which is so important. When you see a situation like this, these images here, I think, tell the story of how significant this fire was. Just really kind of mind-blowing images, actually, of how quickly and how much smoke was actually going up into the air. One thing I have to say overall, from a meteorology perspective, I think that while there certainly were some levels of impacts, in different communities, and there was a smoke that was detected, the meteorology was actually quite favorable in helping avoid what could have been larger impacts. We saw the smoke primarily go aloft, and some of it went over the coastal range and continued staying higher in the atmosphere. In the valley, it didn't move through the valley, but it stayed at a much higher elevation, did not go ground level for the most part. Although, again, there were certainly times when there was, you could detect it, you could smell some smoke. But overall, we were monitoring these levels on a real-time basis throughout the valley through different sensors, and were primarily green, actually, for the most part, all throughout the valley, including around Tracy. There were a few times, though, when we saw, when the winds basically did push it down for very brief periods of time, did see those levels elevate right around the site. But for the most part, the vast majority of the time, we did not see, those elevated concentrations that otherwise could have happened if we saw an inversion, high pressure, and pushing that to the ground. These are just a few images of where we located some of the temporary air monitoring. One of them was located there at Coral Hollow. Elementary School. Another one was at the Welcome Center there in the Tracy Hills community, just southeast of the warehouse, where you also generally see prevailing winds. You know, the warehouse was located to the northwest of this neighborhood. So now just to where we are today, this is what it looks like today. The smoke plume is basically gone. There is a bit of residual as the crews work to move material out and are now working in earnest on demolition cleanup. And there is some extinguishment going on as they find patches there within the warehouse. But I think overall, just wanted to a big shout out to the first responders, the fire crew that was out there. I know there was assistance provided from neighboring as well, the fire chief. Just tremendous job on their part to try to get a very difficult situation under control. And then again, thank you to Supervisor Rickman for all of his work to coordinate with a number of folks, including ourselves, to try to support the situation. There's just some examples of some of the outreach that was conducted, amplifying the county's message, amplifying the health department, and just trying to help with extending the reach to residents that may have been concerned with the fire. I'll move on. Just a couple of other quick updates. I think this was mentioned earlier in the CAC report, but the English and Spanish annual reports are now available. The reports are available in lobbies. The printed version of the Spanish report is imminent. I'm hearing it's going to be next week on that version. If you're wondering why you only see the English in the lobby, there's a little bit of a delay on having that with just with the translation and the print side of it. So that is very, very near available in the lobbies. Both will be available. Wanted to also highlight, and I'll turn it over to Jamie for just a second here to mention some recent awards that we've received with respect to the advertising campaigns that your board has put into place. If you could maybe put for the camera, and what was that award for?
This is an award of excellence for our Clean Air Room direct mail piece. And this is an award of merit, so like second place, but it's for this is for the direct mail piece award of merit. And this is award of excellence for our zero emission landscape grant program for commercial landscapers.
Thank you, Jamie, for that. I also wanted to just mention that we did provide testimony at the CARB hearing. There was a very important CARB hearing recently where they amended the Cap and Invest program, and myself, along with a couple of my colleagues, traveled up there and as a coalition weighed in on the importance of the various clean air programs that we were highlighting as not being lost in the shuffle of the rulemaking that was going on that has some potential significant impacts to greenhouse gas reduction funds. So that was something that is a peripheral related to the CARB report that's in the agenda today. We were also happy to host a workshop here recently that CARB and the State Department of OEHA held on a new risk factor for acrolein. This is a significant proposal that came out from the state. We offered and we're happy to allow them to interact here locally and talk to the public about this cancer risk factor for acrolein and go through the public process and support that here locally. And then lastly, just wanted to provide a quick report on a very, I thought, useful and positive meeting that we had with Administrator Mike Martucci. He's the Region 9 and Region 2 Administrator for EPA. He actually has 2 regions under his portfolio right now. He actually came up to Bakersfield. He was traveling here to California on some other business, and we were able to actually accommodate him and meet with him and actually go out into the Valley agricultural sector to look at some of the great work that's going on and replacing equipment, doing some of the dust reduction efforts with lower dust harvesting. And through that engagement, I think we're able to really connect, a lot of what we've been talking to EPA about with what's actually happening on the ground as we keep looking for funding through some of the key programs that were mentioned during the legislative report. And so we had a very positive engagement, and I think it helps just continue the, putting, realities to the things that we talk a lot about when we go to DC. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Vice Chair and board members for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Samir. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Member Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, good job Supervisor Rickman out there. Next thing is what was burning in that warehouse? And then finally, thank you, Jamie. You know, I have a 10-year-old and we relied on that information and I actually took him out of the area because I know initially it was blowing to the coastal region up north, but I think at one point they thought it was actually going to come south in the valley. So because of that information, and that's helpful because it makes us more reliant on the air board. We look at it more frequently when you're doing real-time stuff like that. So thanks.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yeah, no, I think that's a great question and something that's actually still being evaluated, as we're in the midst of the event and there's going to be a lot of post work done as well to really think about, on a variety of fronts, whether it's air, whether it's water, there's debris also in the area that's being studied. But it's basically just a variety of medical supplies. It's a large warehouse. There is, just generally speaking, if you could just imagine, it's everything from gloves and bedding to other things. I think that's definitely one of those things I know that the county has been working on to understand getting inventory of that. And there is going to be, I neglected to mention that there's quite a bit of funding now also going into doing fence line monitoring there at the site, along with other monitoring in the communities. There's actually a contractor that's been identified. This is at the facilities expense to do that. And I think as part of that process, there's going to be quite a bit of information about not only what was in the warehouse, but also how much of that may have worked its way into communities. And that's I know that's a priority for county OES, and if we can support that work, we're actually we also pull CARB into this conversation because they have a lot of capacities that we don't have locally in terms of understanding air toxics, for example. There's daily discussions in terms of what kind of monitoring, what kind of sampling may be useful. Now that the smoke is basically almost completely dissipated, there's a lot of conversations about, well, as cleanup occurs, how do we make sure we're keeping an eye on that as well? And that's where a lot of the conversation is happening right now. I don't know if Supervisor Rickman has any additional, I don't want to put him on the spot here, but Supervisor, did you have anything else to add to what I just said?
Thank you, Samir. No, I mean, the only comment I wanted to, I'm going to make a few comments. First of all, thank you and your team. And I just want the, board to know, I was on scene right, the first day, right when it happened, right when it started. And, hey, I've been to a lot of emergencies and so on and fires, and I have never seen something this intense. And, I was very involved with OES and getting the services and so on to our first responders. But one of the main concern our residents have, of course, was with air quality. And to this board, we called Samir, him and his team came out there, immediately, and their response, or air district response, was quick. We appreciate it. Our residents appreciate your work setting up those monitors and letting our residents know of the air quality. So, if they had to shelter in place and, they look at the air quality and make that determination. But, with a 1 million square foot warehouse, one of the largest fires in, at least in our region, but in what I understand, California, and there's been very few fires like this in the United States in general. So your team did an excellent job, and kudos to you, and thank you for all you do. And shout out to our first responders, our fire chief Randy Bradley, who's the incident commander, did a heck of a job. It went up so fast, and they did a great job containing it to that one site, Medline. And instead of it, going farther and hitting, we have some other large warehouses. We were concerned about FedEx catching, and they were able to pull that back and stop it. So again, I just want to say thank you on behalf of San Joaquin County and our residents of San Joaquin County, the job that you guys did. Thank you.
Thank you for those insights, Supervisor. Appreciate that. Dr. Sheriffs.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Rickman, for those comments, observations. Samir, do you anticipate reporting back to the board at some point in a few months, lessons learned? I mean, we obviously hope this is a one-off. It was a very unusual experience, but there's still things to learn from a disaster like this that may help inform our response in the future.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, one of the things that we've been thinking a lot about internally is continuing to ramp up our incident response capabilities. You know, so I think that I'd be very interested in coming back in the future and just talking to the board about, you know, kind of where we are, what are some things that we're looking ahead to, and as part of that, you know, I think this was certainly an incident that there's things that we've learned, not just at our level, but as collectively, I would say, as to how in the region, we could all be working closely together. There's definitely great coordination. I think there's some capacities that we'd like to see more of. You heard a little bit about that with the incident response bill that's working its way through the legislature this year. I think some of those resources would be very useful, to keep growing some capacities, not just here, but also with neighboring air districts as well. So I think, I think that's a high priority topic, and one that, I wouldn't limit to just this particular incident, but just something in general as to how do we, as an agency, play a supportive and useful role in supporting local government and also residents in protecting themselves when these things happen. And if I know one thing for sure, there will be some kind of future incidents, at some point, hopefully not many and not any ever, but I think that, things will happen from time to time, and it's important that we're ready for it. And I think that's something that we're definitely, continuing to think about.
Excellent. Thank you for the response. Unless we have any more questions for Samir, we're going to move on to governing board member comments. Any final comments from the board?
I'll give one since nobody's.
We'll go with Councilmember Rodriguez, and then we'll kick it over to Supervisor Mendez.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask our staff and Samir if, I took a visit to Mexico City, and looking at their vibrant city, obviously in comparison to the air quality standards that we have here, I mean, there's no comparison. This is no kick down on Mexico at all in their city, right? I mean, they're doing their efforts. But the question that came about was, does this district have any sister regions or sister regions outside of California, outside of the states, that they partner in looking at their initiatives and what they do to help clean their air? For example, we talk a lot about these solutions that we're trying to find for our ag partners. Any other region similar to what we're experiencing and challenges that we can piggyback from, right? We can look at what they're doing and see if we can bring that here. So just made me question, because being there, although at high altitude, obviously their mobile source being their biggest pollutant, it's tough. It's tough to get around. So I know that we're spoiled here, but when it comes to government getting involved in making these regulations, it impacts our local businesses, ag partners, and what have you. And I'm sure what other challenges other folks are doing around the world, and then see if we can partner up with them as well. So just something to consider.
Thank you to the chair. I think that's a great idea, and something that, the short answer is we do not have any sort of sister regions. I think there's, just generally understanding, that in other worlds, I think that there certainly could be some value in exploring that. I think Mexico City is on that short list. I've actually never been there before, but it looks like a truly amazing place, but they certainly have their fair challenges. There's quite a few PM 2.5 challenge regions across the world, and in I would say almost every other case, if not every other case, the levels of PM 2.5 that you see experienced in those regions, like on the annual level, standard, for example, far surpass anything that you see here in the San Joaquin Valley. And I think that if they're doing things, for example, that we would benefit from, I mean, we obviously would want to see that and learn from that. And I have the feeling that they would be able to learn a lot about what we're doing here. Like a lot of the regions out there that are PM challenged, we study them very closely. They're still dealing with things like burning coal, burning wood for heating, for cooking, or, having highly uncontrolled diesel and other, like you mentioned, mobile source emissions. Certainly open burning of ag materials is a major impact to a lot of these regions, or just highly and unregulated industrial sectors, unlike our industrial sector here, are huge contributors to PM 2.5 and other parts of the world. So I suspect that a lot of the things that we do here, whether it's phasing out open burning or highly regulating industrial sources, are things that, they would be interested to hear about. They may have some difficulty, implementing a lot of those things. We're uniquely positioned here in this country with this board's commitment and with where we are with our sources, to be able to do these types of things, but I think overall, anything we can do that's a positive kind of partnership-based approach, especially if we can learn something new, and certainly, our board has always been open in the past to sharing, whatever we've learned here with others. I think, there could be some good value there. So.
Thank you, Samir. And just a big distinction. I mean, this is a highly urbanized city, nothing compared to what we have here in Central Valley. So it wasn't so much to compare it to the city. It was more so to look at regions similar to ours that face similar challenges. So yeah, just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. Thank you.
Supervisor Mendez.
Yeah, just real quick, your meteorology prediction was spot on. I get up early for the sunrises, and as it started to get light, you could see the next morning that, smoke on the coastal hills. Within an hour or two, you couldn't see it anymore. What doesn't mean it wasn't there, but the angle of the sun hitting it, you could actually see it coming from the north and going down the coastal range. Yeah. Just real quick, because I've been on CSAC for as long as I've been here on the executive committee, just slightly less, but I was interviewed on, things I thought I did or what I accomplished. And everybody forgets that the biggest thing you do is who you hire to run your organizations. And I just want to say Samir Sheikh was on the list of accomplishments.
Excellent. Good luck topping that. Anybody else that is looking to go? So we're going to go ahead and call the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.